Good morning, everyone. We are live on YouTube. This is Tara-Lee Live, and I am here with my co-host Drake, and we have a guest today. Green Goddess is in the house. We are going to be talking a bit about Jadam and natural farming today. We're going to have a nice little sesh. This is Saturday morning. I'm tuning in from Washington State. Drake is tuning in from BC up in Canada. And Green Goddess, hello, where are you tuning in from today? We'll let you tell everybody where you're from. Colorado.
Denver metro area, and we just had like a really nice rainstorm last night. Well, depending on what part of Colorado you're at, you would call it nice. Kind of ruined my weekend plans to go out to Glenwood Springs because apparently there is a huge flash flood and a whole bunch of mud came over Highway 70. And I'm like, man, right when I was about to go out there, that sucks.
Of course, select timing.
I know, like there's never like that perfect time of year where you can guarantee that the weather is going to be great to go visit a place.
Exactly. All right. Well, if you're tuning in live, make sure you all have it up on live chat and not top chat today. I'm super excited to be hanging out with you all today. I'm ready for a dab. Let's see who's in the house. We got Gingerbug hanging out. John Maddox, what's up? Red River. Sammy Sis, how are you? All of our regulars in the house. Yes, love you all. Are you all ready to take a dab with me this morning, or a smoke or a puff?
I'm rolling up right now.
Awesome. I'm going to apologize for running a bit late this morning. We had all kinds of things going on this morning. But I have had a coyote after my chickens, and that has just got me a little distraught this morning.
Is he back again last night?
I think that bothers people.
He was back this morning. Yeah.
Same one?
Same one. He's gotten a few of them. So not fun. He's got the taste. Yeah, exactly. All right.
And are they easy for him to get to? Like, are they out there running wild all day and
No,
night?
I have to keep him penned now. I have to keep them all pinned. I have a big pen though, but what he's really smart at doing, I didn't used to have a netting over the top because it's such a big pen. He will run across and back and forth and chase them, and they'll eventually fly up and out, and that's how he gets them. He's making them fly out of their cage. Yeah, I'm like, frick! So I had to put a top over it and everything. Yeah. So what's everybody puffing on? I am going to be mixing two together. I really like mixing this duct tape and this Schnorr's Sundae together. It's been being like this. It's been given this sweet gassy hit, and I've been really, really liking it. What are you smoking on this morning, Green Goddess?
Well, I had a harvest. I wanted to like try breeding for once, and I'm never going to do it again. Because I harvested all of my, that's what I'm smoking right now, my Phoenix Fires, and they all got completely seeded out. So I have a huge stash that I've been going through anytime like I got a spare second, and they're really nice, lovely buds. But at the same time, when you break it down, it's mainly seeds, nothing but seeds. I just put a male Rona plant in the room. I let nature happen. And it must have stayed in there for a bit too long because I'm hardly getting any weed out of this. Like I was showing earlier, I want to show everybody else. This is filled with seeds. If I tilt it too much, see that?
Yeah, that's nice.
Filled to the brim with seeds, and I'm only halfway through. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have seeds for life. So that's what I'm puffing on. Basically, it's whatever's left over of the Phoenix Fire that didn't get turned into a seed.
That's great
and that's the bummer about making seeds and flour. It changes the way the flour tastes, I think, with the seeds in there. It just has a funky.
Oh yeah, if you're even making hash rosin, and you're making hash rosin, something that's got seeds, you notice because it comes out in the final product.
I didn't know that. I was thinking about like doing a hash, and I thought that might solve the problem, but when you don't have that harvest you wanted, then you're like, great, I have nothing to smoke. I might as well go through it and just smoke it. And personally, I'm a flower person myself. I like doing dabs once in a while, but I love flower the most. So hello everyone. I can't see chat because I like go back and forth between screens. So here's like the Zoom screen.
Okay, so can you do a half window? Can you have 2 windows open? That's what I do. Sorry, I forgot to tell you that part.
I'll do a halfies so that I could see what chat is up to.
A half.
And if you're tuning in today, don't forget to hit that thumbs up because it helps get the word out and get our information out. And also please share if you can. We'd really appreciate that. What's everybody smoking on out there? How are all of our members doing today? We're going to be talking about Jadam, and we're going to be having some questions come up. Green Goddess has been going down the rabbit hole a bit with us, and Drake is definitely down that rabbit hole.
Hey, and I want to quickly touch on the fact
up, everybody?
Everyone is, once you do find say a cultivar or just some cannabis to keep it rough that you really like and you really love, if you're able to have an environment where you have some regulars and you're able to let a male of that one go, you may just find yourself with a lifelong amount of seeds. So if you're able to source some genetics you like, and we always like pushing the regulars so that you can further it. But of course, it depends. If you can only have a couple plants and you don't really know what's going on, you're going to want stems because you need your medicine. We totally understand that. But if you're lucky enough to be able to even just sacrifice one harvest so that, just a couple month period, depending on if you're perpetual or not, you can really get yourself essentially a lifelong amount of some genetic. And yeah, maybe in 20 years, you're not going to be hitting the same thing. But if you've got thousands, you can now trade with with everyone else though, right? You can trade at 10 seeds for 10 or whatever you want to do. So it's one of those nice now not pay $10 for one little seed and then be so worried when we're doing everything. We now have thousands to play with.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I know a few people have given me some free seeds, so I would like to hit them up and be like, hey, I'm no professional, I just threw in the male with the female, but they happen to be like 2 of my favorite strains. So give it a smoke and tell me what you think. Maybe I should just grow it myself first to show everybody else this is what I got off of it. And these are like the high and effects I'm getting from it and the smells that I'm getting from it. And if you want to try it, hit me up. Here's some seeds. Let's trade or something. I don't know.
So
that's a great idea, though. I do like trading.
I think that's a great idea. My girlfriend, Kathy, so I wasn't meaning to breed 2 plants. 70s Mama sent me some seeds and I thought I got rid of the male, but actually I ended up, not getting rid of the male. I cut it down and then I threw it out behind a tree, like where I have some pots, and I just kind of left it. Well, one branch grew back and grew pollen on this one branch.
Great.
And it was getting hit by the sprinkler. And so it pollinated all of these female on the bottom mainly, but like a lot of seeds. And it was super lemon haze and some other ones. And so I sent Kathy, my girlfriend, some, and I'm like, well, here's some free seeds. I don't know what they're going to be. She was the first one to grow them out, and they were actually really good. They had some really amazing taste. But there are definitely different, that's the problem. You're going to have so many different strains in there or cultivars in there of that it's going to be like, it's just so hard to find like that same, smelling one again and everything. And especially if you're trying to do like a crop where they all would be harvested at the same time, right? That's another thing. Yeah. Because the timings are going to be off as well. But I think everybody should definitely at least breed seeds once though and give out seeds because everybody should be able to plant seeds for free. Everybody should have free seeds.
And let's look at it this way. Yes. If you do the DD firsthand before you purchase said seeds, even if they're regulars, you can get them from someone very reputable that's put all that time in so that when you let these seeds do their thing, they're most likely going to be a little bit more open. Who knows? It depends which way you go. Sometimes you could actually do the opposite and maybe close in your line a little bit more. But generally, if you source that original worked product, like something that's worked properly, essentially is what I'm trying to get at, you'll have a lot more consistency, like you're saying. So you can plant 1,000 seeds, and you'll roughly have 1,000 plants that finish in similar times and similar heights and all the fun stuff, as opposed to what we all know with this polyhybrid shenanigans, where it's just like, guys, this is why pheno hunting is so important, right? Pheno hunting is like the bee's knees now, and that's because, 6 out of your 10 things maybe aren't going to be so sweet. But again, there's so much potential in there, and I'm not knocking anything. There's it all has value. We just have to kind of discern how much went into it to get to the end value, because I don't necessarily think that smashing A with B of whatever really quickly and then releasing that line is necessarily worth hundreds of dollars per pack. I think they're worth a lot.
Nor is it nice to go and buy somebody else's work, smash it together and sell it.
And I mean, a little bit. I understand that.
Buying their flower product? Are you talking about buying their flower product and mixing that with somebody else's flower product?
No, seeds. I'm talking about someone taking someone's bread seed line that they've worked for a long time, and then just buying it and then back crossing it to one another, like just the brother and sister per se.
Yeah,
make it easy for people, and
so
then sell the seeds.
One male, one female, and putting them together and seeing what happens with that.
Yeah. See, and I think that, like, in the breeding, when we're talking about breeding and people spending a lot of time on breeding, there's like people that have spent years on getting a strain to be consistent, right? Yeah. Everybody knows that if you go plant a sunflower seed today, that sunflower turns out to be that sunflower. You get that big head of sunflower, right? That seed will be that big head. But if you take that big head out there from that sunflower and you try to replant it, it might have gotten pollinated from something else. Sunflowers also cross-pollinate. So every year you've got to buy hybrid seeds, right? Oh. Which is basically what we're going to get to in the cannabis industry of being able to have consistent hybrid seeds is basically what we're going to look for. Because as a medical patient, if you're only allowed to grow 4, 3, 6, whatever your number is, you want to grow, a super lemon haze or whatever cultivar it might be. You want it to be that cultivar. You're counting on that medicine to produce that same consistency. So
and be a female too.
Yeah.
Of course. And I think with a lot of, even with more conventional agriculture, I think it's F8 or F9 that things are generally taken to before they're even considered to be ran. So there's a lot of like instances where it's like the people putting the work in aren't necessarily going as deep as we would really need to even have any sort of standards as far as protection of their work. But with lots of it comes down to like what you were bringing up. It's more like when people intentionally try and really recreate like a cultivar of original that's like their bread and butter. I mean, with a lot of it though, it's kind of the name of the game with breeding, right? There's no like you're supposed like with if as a breeder and a grower you're extremely incentivized and you've got all the go, you've got the integrity, you're just working hard. I mean, that's kind of a way it comes, and by putting in the work and by doing it all right, it takes it out of the feasibility level for a lot of people. So I don't know. I can go back and forth on that, because once you've released your genetics out there, of course people are going to work with them, and you should want them to work.
That's what's fun about being creative about growing the plant in the first place.
Exactly. And it's like you're kind of, it's your way of sourcing the male and the female and making the things work and doing everything. So it's like if someone happens to get there themselves, I mean, I understand that. And then maybe there will be things in the future getting all the naughty patent stuff and everything people like to talk in other conversations. But I see merit to both sides, but it's more just like, I encourage you to find something you really like, go and self that yourself. Maybe don't make a seed company and start selling this person's bread. Right. Then it's like, that's who knows how they started in the first place, right? Like we're all just learning. We're all stewards of the soil and of the plant. So it's like, do we really want to pick?
So let's talk about seed storage then. Like storing these seeds, like when we talk about lifetime supply of seeds, what's the best way to store these seeds so that they'll stay good? I mean, some people put them in a fireproof box, so if their house burns down, at least they got a little cash and all their seeds.
I know someone that recently had their RV burned down with their whole fucking shebang, and they're hurt. They're hurt, and I feel much love to that individual if they happen to hear this. A very sad thing to see, but yeah, it never hurts. Never hurts. Mitigations as far as
have that firebox and some sort of future savings put away.
Well, I guess if we talk about seed storage, we need to really look at the professionals, so-called professionals, like our world seed storage. They have our world seed storage at a certain temperature It's like, what is it? I don't even remember right now. Like, so I'm not
Cool and
prepared
dark,
to
but
even
not
like
freezing,
say,
right?
but isn't it
I think I
like
heard
one of them?
the fridge is okay, but not the freezer.
One of them, it's like in a mountain in Norway. They actually store it. All of our like world seeds. Don't they have like several different organizations?
Interesting. They probably have the set temperature and humidity, whatever that is, to make sure that when the seed comes out of the vault, that it's still reliable.
Yeah.
I was setting up some new seeds, and I went through some really, I mean, they're probably like 3-year-old seeds, and they're just not sprouting. Not like the new seeds are sprouting.
Well, they need to be kept cold and in a cool, dark environment. And that's the most important thing. The worst thing you can do is actually have them sitting in your room, because your room is warm, cold, warm, cold, warm, cold. And honestly, I have some of my seeds sitting out. I'm not doing the best right now, because I was just going through some the other day and I left the box sitting out. I normally have it back in like a pantry area. I have like a cold area where it's just a really cold spot in my house back in this cupboard, and it stays cool. But I know some people keep them in the freezer. I've heard some people keep them in the fridge. I'm not prepared to tell you how to keep them, so I don't want to pass any wrong information on today, but I definitely think you should think about, and also some of these people say my seeds haven't popped. I'm having a hard time with seeds popping. Well, that's probably because whoever kept them before you, maybe you didn't store them so well. But there also are these cases where there are these cultivars that put on these extremely hard shells. What's the outside of the shell thing called, Drake? Do you remember right now? I don't want to like ruin, I don't remember it. But that hard material that, the first part of the material that is not part of the seed, that people say that you can tell whether it's male or female, which you can't.
Okay, I'm with you.
That part, you cannot tell from the seed whether it's male or female. Don't waste your time, people.
Maybe if you hold it up to the light.
No.
And we pretty well did nail it for just the average consensus for storing seeds. It's just in a cool, dry place. I think with the rule of thumb for average seeds, like 4 degrees Celsius, 10 degrees, somewhere in between there, and like 50 degrees or less, or 50% or less humidity.
Green Grape says bury them in an ammo box with a Bovita pack.
There you go.
Well, if you buried them in the ground, wouldn't it already be moist down there in that environment?
Well, no, you would seal them. You would seal them up, right?
So
and
then the Bovita pack or something.
So now the Bovita pack, it would be depend on the moisture content. So when you're saying Bovita, there's several different moisture contents.
35% Bovita pack.
Yeah, you would have to make sure. Okay. I don't know what one. Definitely not 50. Or 65, which is what I use. Yeah. And then the other thing is like, so when you bury it in the ground, it's just like when you bury pipes or water pipes, you've got to bury it below your freeze zone, right? So you're in your area, depending on your area, you have a frost free zone where so far down in your
like 4 feet too. It's pretty thick sometimes.
Sometimes it's really thick depending on your area.
Yeah, like we got really heavy clay soil out here. It's crazy.
But anyways, let's jump into something we actually do know, which is Jadam, because we are definitely working on that, and we have been learning so much behind the scenes on Jadam. And I know you had some questions. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to ask Drake about it because I did my cannabis Jadam actually. As I look over at my cannabis Jadam bucket, the lid was off. I think because we had such a heavy rainstorm yesterday, my husband came out and moved all the barrels around so that we could collect the rainwater. So I'm over here talking about my bucket, like, that's not my bucket. My bucket had a lid on it. Like, son of a bitch, that is my bucket. So anyways, what month was it? Back in February or March. We had a huge snowstorm. I went and I collected all of the snow and I put it all in a brute barrel, and as it melted, it filled the brute barrel at least halfway up with water. Then I had like 6 or 7 huge male plants. I just chopped them all down, shredded them all up, and stuck them in that bucket with a handful of what looked like leaf mold to me. And then I just let that sit for so long. And so by now it's been about 6 months. And I've been using a little bit of it. I'd like to use more, but I'm just like, so I read the book, but this is my first time making it. I've never like really deep dived into the correct way of putting a bucket like this together. Like, do you need to add labs? Doesn't matter. I know that there's other ways of making it, but right now this barrel right here is just with my cannabis plants, the male So I'm wondering if I did everything correctly or if I messed up on something, because I'm using it on my, and I'm worried that I don't want it to be something bad.
Well, there's definitely a few ways to get her done, but it's the same core concept overall and same core principle and practice. The only variance is really depending on how much product you have, like how much grass material or cannabis plant or whatever you're using as like the bulk of the material you're trying to ferment, however much you have on hand. So say if you had enough to fill up the whole barrel, you take your barrel, you fill it up with plant material, pretty decently tight, like you don't have to step on it and stuff, but fill it most of the way up. Then pour your ideally soft water or dry mineral water on top of it. I like to put the handful of leaf mold soil or two on prior to pouring the water on, so then it kind of all pours in there. That really doesn't matter.
A quick question: when you're getting into the water, it being soft water, what about rainwater or snow melt? What about creek water or pond water?
And let me reiterate, it really does not have to be soft water for these specific like JLFs, and even for JMS. Even for JMS, again, we're 100%. We're always going to recommend soft water or the jam mineral water, rainwater, snow water. Of course, that's fantastic. Okay. But I think even with the snow water, rainwater, we like to put it through the jam mineral water system, which is really just a big barrel with 20 centimeters worth of rocks on the bottom and a big sock full of leaf mold soil. There are specific amounts you put in there, but you let whatever water sit there for 3 days, and now you've got your mineral water. It's not a water softener, but it mineralizes it. So that's super cool. But little tangent. So back to the JLFs and soft water ideally, or rainwater, whatever, but the hard water can work. The microbes are awesome. They'll do their work on it. But for the JMS foliar, it's better to use soft water. Again, depending your dilutions, it usually gets down to less than 50 ppm if you're mixing in soft or hard water JMS to your soft water. So it's still applicable for the principles we follow with the JWA and the wetting agent like efficacy. But it's just always best to use soft water overall for everything. Lots of us don't have that luxury. Anyways, a little KDF RV filter helped a little bit with like the chlorine at least. But going back to the JLFs, the one way if you have all the material is to put the plant material in first, add your leaf mold. With all JLFs, you can do them in the same accordance as a JMS for making them a little special. So for a 5 gallon, just because I know the numbers off the top of my head, 5 gallon bucket, fill it full of grass, weeds, whatever, the cannabis male plants if you got them. Add your leaf mold soil handful. That's the only thing that's kind of rough number. A handful of leaf mold soil will do the trick. And that's up to like a 400 liter or whatever tank. Like it's a handful of leaf mold can go a long way. Exactly. Then you use your 20 grams of the non-iodized sea salt. You can add your salt in there as well. If you have your C9, in the same proportion. And then
I didn't add salt.
You don't have to. You definitely don't have to, but you can.
You have organic sea salt.
Yeah, if it's the organic and iodized good to go salt, that's good for the other preparation.
You can still add it later.
Yeah, you can add it anytime.
Okay. I'll add it right now. Shoot.
For the 5 gallon bucket, you can add the 20 grams, just like a JMS.
5 gallon.
And then for your rock dust, your phyllite, your azomite, whatever you have for that portion of it, you can double the salt. So just like in a JMS, even you do your specific amount of everything, then you add your 20 grams of your sea salt, your 40 grams of your rock dust, and then you can for the JLF specifically, add a little bit of crop residue. Since you're working with male plants already, you don't have to do that, but then you could add in a couple pieces of wild grass and stuff like that, just to get the diverse microbes in there. And then generally we're usually doing it the opposite way. So we have our wild grass collection. We're going to add in some cannabis leaves and a little bit from our main stock to get some of those IMO from our plants into the mix. And that's this is all recommended from the book.
Oh, okay.
So I might add, also, if you are interested in this, you can find all this information in the Jalan books. You can also get hooked up with us on our Discord. If you contact Drake or I, we will get you into the Discord, and we also have all that information in the Discord. some of you have already joined the Discord and don't actually have access to that information. We've got to go and change those parameters. We're learning about all this stuff because right now we have it broken down. I work with 5-gallon buckets. And so we have it all broke down into 5-gallon bucket increments, and it makes it really easy for some of us because in that Jadam book, it's like big, like 1,600 gallons stuff and like crazy, crazy amounts.
Well, yeah, I suppose if you're just doing it with a 5-gallon, you're going to want to know what specifically is the recipe for that 5-gallon. Then, yeah. Well, that's good to know. And back to the leaf mold soil. So
like,
what is that? What
okay,
specifically?
so I would like to take this one on for a minute because I really like how, like, you do exactly what I did. You compared it to a recipe, and I love that you compared it to a recipe because everybody has baked. Okay, we've all made cookies, we've all made cake or tried. I hope every one of you has at least tried to make cookies, okay, or tried to bake because you need to if you haven't. And bread, okay, so like a yeast is very active, okay, that's a live living thing, and they only last for so long, they only live for so long. Well, we're kind of doing that in Jadam. We're making these things that only live for so long, and if you don't make them right, they don't live. And if you don't buy the right or get the right stuff, like if you make a sourdough bread, one sourdough bread tastes different than another sourdough bread, right? Or this cookie tastes different from this cookie because somebody used a little bit of different ingredient in this cookie. So you can go out and get leaf mold soil. I can get leaf mold soil. You can get leaf mold soil. It might still not be the same. It might not still be good enough. And that's why when you go out and collect this stuff, it's so important that you go in different areas throughout the year and you're collecting this and then you're testing it. You're not just immediately using it. You actually test it. You make a JMS out of it to see if it's active. And so you actually go out and you get, thanks Drake, and you actually collect almost like, well, okay, depending on how thick the soil is, because you can collect from 3 inches to 3 feet, depending on that type of soil. If like the mycelium layer that you find is right underneath the leaves is where you really want to find it. It's right under the leaves. It's got the white, you'll see the white layer. If you're not finding that white layer, you're not in a good spot. You're really not. You gotta just find it. But it's also super hard to find. It's also super hard to find depending on the moisture content too. If you went out in a super dry area, you might not find this. But I also feel like there are places you're not gonna find this. I have went down around fields that they spray chemicals on, that they have fungicides and stuff on.
Interesting.
In the desert area, you're not going to find a lot of fungi. You really need to be somewhere where you're finding fungi, because we need to have the fungi. We've got to introduce fungi. Go ahead, Drake.
You want to jump in? We recently heard about some collections in the desert that went great. So it's very possible to collect these all over the place as well, which is neat, but it's very, you have to know what you're doing. So
know where to find it.
Oh yeah, if you're in the desert, well, then you're probably going to have to go out in late or early mornings, late nights, early mornings when it's dark out, because that's usually when the little guys like to show themselves out there in regards to fungi. And then you're also going to have to, use your environment when it's a little bit moister, a little bit higher humidity, so on and so forth. But just going out, adventuring, and trying to find yourself a little fairy ring that pops up. If you can find yourself fungi that are showing themselves, which happen in the desert as well, just less frequently, you can find a fairy ring, if you scrape away that area and go underneath, there's some IMO in there, and those are pertaining to your environment as well. So now that's probably just going to be a small selection of your overall leaf mold collection. But if you're in an area that has those temperatures quite often, you're most likely going to want it. You can also make your own now too. If you can just get whatever materials that are growing there, chop them down and pile them and let them break down slowly, nature is going to take its course. You're going to be able to make it. And you could even go as far as maybe if you're growing indoors, you could take your own crop residue and put them out there. I'm a little bit more just use the plants that are already, things that are out there, and only
more diversity and stability or something like that.
Yeah, and only if it can be respectfully too. So like for me, because I'm like living in the complete opposite area, I think desert, and I'm thinking like bare bones and like a cacti here and the odd shrub here. So it's like if you got like 2 or 3 shrubs in an area, probably don't cut them down to make leaf mold soil because that's not good for the environment. But there's plenty of ways to do it. As Tara mentioned,
in the desert, like if it had just rained like a day before or something like that, then you would be able to find it out there because the rain just came, it got everything moist.
So I want to go back to, you can find it almost anywhere. And just because you can find it doesn't mean it's the right type. And we actually haven't identified enough. They really don't have a soil identified. They do not have these microorganisms identified. They're barely identifying them. They really don't even understand this. This is so new.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah. They really don't even know.
Let's go through we'll do the one. I didn't want to go too deep because I don't like reading just stuff off. I know it's boring for lots of people, but here's a little intro to our Discord. We got, this is the semi-deeper version, and I'm not exposed.
Okay, so Drake, can I finish for just a minute?
Yeah, go, please.
So, can you stop? Can you like take that off the screen for just a moment? It distracts me. I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, so it's like just because you can find mycelium, just like finding the right mushroom, just because a mushroom is a mushroom doesn't mean it's the right mushroom, right? So just because we're finding this mycelium and this leaf mold soil, it might not still be the right leaf mold soil. That's why I think it's super important that we collect it throughout the year and in different locations. It's just like one person's sourdough bread or one person's chocolate chip cookie doesn't taste like the other person's chocolate chip cookie. It's because there's different ingredients and it was made differently. Each tree, each thing out in the forest has a different smell. If you go to different areas, have different smells, it's going to have different microbes. So it's super important that you collect these from super diversity areas. That's the other thing that's really key. Don't go to where it's all just pine forest. You can't. You
had mentioned that, not near the pine trees. Going to trees that shed their leaves in the fall.
Yeah, you need to go to the trees that shed their leaves in the fall. And Drake, now I'll let you cut back to that because then this is going to tell you how to find it. So go ahead.
Yeah, and there's like that's a great thing there. There's going to be IMO everywhere. Is it the IMO you're looking for? So here I'll just go through our little excerpt, and this is just kind of how we share for everyone to source some leaf mold soil. And we've, if we can think of any improvements, please let it at us. If there's anything that's confusing when you hear it, please let us know. But we've kind of tried to dumb it down so that it's like, even myself could just read this and go out there and do it. So anyways, how am I supposed to collect leaf mold soil? Well, first you want to find an old leafy tree in which the soil with a leaf layer is completely undisturbed. We're talking like 20 years plus, no people, no dogs walking around there. Animals from the forest, good to go. People and their animals, nay. So you want to go and look pretty deep if you have the opportunity to. All of this stuff is like it's the gold standard. You got to work with what you've got around you, or sometimes you just won't have anything, and that's no good. So ideal, you want it to be undisturbed.
Did that zoom for everyone or just me?
Did it what?
Did that zoom for everyone or just me?
No zoom for me.
Okay, go on your view options, Drake, and see if you can zoom in on that. That's really hard for people to see. I was just going to help people out.
I have never gone through zoom in and zoom in. I just do this
myself.
Does this work?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Beautiful. That's much more within my realm of technical capabilities. So. So that's perfect. So yeah. So again, if you can we'll continuing on, the closer the tree is to your garden, the better. That means, and again, what do you mean I'm supposed to be out in the forest, but it's supposed to be close to my garden? What are you talking about? Your environment. If you can stay within, an hour or two somewhere that gets the same conditions as where you are, somewhat relatively the same elevations too, not as huge of a factor, but just keeping these things in mind. You want to be adding microbes that are thriving in your environment already. So that's all that means. The closer the trees, the closer the tree is to your garden, the better. That's just like, I've got mountains all around here, and if I hit all of these different areas, they're all going to be great collections because it's all getting the same season. Whereas if I drive like 4 hours closer in Tara's direction to soy use, it's straight more of a desert. It's actually classified a desert, a lot hotter, and they're going to be good IMO there too, but different. So here, if there is a mountain covered with leafy, not pine forest, then start looking there. Prefer the side of the mountain that's closest to your garden, again, which is cool, just little tips. If there's no mountain nearby, you just look at the nearest non-coniferous forest. If there is no forest nearby, look at the same kind of trees in a local park. If you can't do that, look for older standalone trees that are just nearby. So we're talking about the scaling level. It's like, yes, if you can get way out into the forest and the deep where no one's touched, perfect. But otherwise, that big tree that's over there, that's got leaves falling, that people don't really mess with too much, that's only a couple 100 feet away, it could potentially still work. Just make sure we're not having pesticides and fungicides and all sorts of things sprayed in this area to that tree like our cities love to do. When you found your tree, if the area is swampy and waterlogged, go find a better one. That's not the IMO that you're looking for. Otherwise, inspect the layer of fallen leaves. It must be completely 100% undisturbed. You want to make sure that there's not things that have screwed around with it. There's not a big old dog poop sitting 2 feet away from you. Those are the IMO that you're looking for either. Even if you found like a bear scat sitting in a certain area, it's not deterring, but maybe just move over a little bit and find a spot close by. You got to be somewhat thoughtful when you're taking these. If it looks untouched, you can inspect it further by carefully digging in it. There should be a layer of leaves on the top, discernible leaves. And we want this layer to be, a couple to a few inches at least thick. Under it, there should be darker broken leaves, twigs, so on and so forth in the process of decomposition. And that's where we'll see some of those little white, looks like mycelial strands and all sorts of fungi and stuff grabbing and breaking over the leaves and the twigs. That's where a lot of people think leaf mold is, and they grab and collect, and that's actually not necessarily what we're looking for either. We're looking for leaf mold soil. That leaf mold part up front is really kind of, it's like putting the drunk goggles on. Because I did the exact same thing, and I did in a pine forest, my first collection a couple of years back. It was all backwards, but I've learned how to incorporate that since, so I'm happy to be able to talk about that. So anyways, under the decomposing leaves, there should be a layer of completely decomposed leaves. Like you can't tell these are leaves. You could tell it was something once. It's not soil, but it's like if you go to pick it up, it's just fallen into pieces, into little parts. Yeah. Keep digging, like you move that aside, and now you've got some nice just soil. But it's close to that decomposing level. There's probably some white strands in it, maybe not, depending on the time and when you get there, but there's nice soil. You pick it up, give it a sniff. It just smells like the forest. It's awesome. You can start digging and digging and digging. Generally, we're using our hands because we want to be in areas that are so fluffy and light and worked by the microbes that we can just scoop with our hands. You don't need to go in there and excavating with a shovel and stuff because it makes it too easy to collect things that we're not necessarily looking for. Getting too clayey, getting too hard, not the specific composition we're looking for. So you can keep digging until you see a lighter level. That lighter level is now where you don't want to go past. You don't want to get to the lighter level. You want to stay just above it for your collections. If the layers of decomposing and decomposed leaves are thick enough, take a sample that includes both. Don't take the deep, lighter covered layers though. You definitely don't want to roll with those. Are you following along on that? Yeah, I sure am, but I've got it on the back end, so I don't need to share it. That's totally fine. So if you,
I couldn't see where you were following along. It wasn't following on the screen for me, and it wasn't big enough. So I'll just let you go ahead.
Oh yeah, that's no problem.
Okay.
It's been up long enough that anyone that's a reader.
So if anybody wants to see that on Discord, it's on Discord. You don't have to write it down. You have access to that. It's free. We want to make it free. Go ahead, Drake. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So don't take the lighter color at the bottom. That's like your threshold of where things are changing out. So you want to have that nice dark layer. That's all the actual leaf mold soil. So that's leaf mold that's just breaking down. It's got to that undiscernible level of consistency, and then it just turns into the soil, which is just this lush life. There's a billion microbes in a teaspoon of healthy leaf mold.
You make me want to run out back and grab some of mine.
I know it's
out back. I just took it out back. I had a whole box in here because I just collected some new stuff the other day.
But as I was just keying in for that, you take that darker layer, you can also take some of that layer that's on top too, that we're saying that's like the completely decomposed leaf, and a little bit above where it's like if you can not really tell that this was a leaf or a twig or what it was, but it still has some sort of form, that works too. You just don't want it to be more than 1/3 of your collection. You want to incorporate the mass of it together. because now you're going to have mainly your fully decomposed leaf mold soil, but then you're going to have a little bit of some of the stuff that's still decomposing and almost all the way there. And that same thing helps with the process in your garden, right? When things start falling down, there's a little bit of decomposition going on. You want to have those workers that are also involved. So now, no leaves, and sorry, it's just because I'm looking at the other page. If you're chatting in, I don't mean to step over you, but I'm almost at the last leg of the JMS here. So you want to make sure, again, you're not taking ones that haven't started decomposing. If you can pick up a leaf, even if there's some white mycelium and stuff on it, that's not what you want. You don't want to be able to what they are. That's not the goal. Then, as I said before, smell it. Make sure it smells a rich, healthy soil. Like, just if you go in the forest, you just peel it open and stick your nose in there, as weird as that sounds, it smells amazing. It's great, right? We're getting all these different, let's just say, soil terps, for lack of better words. So it's fantastic, and you'll know, right? It's not putrid, it's not awful. It's kind of just sweet and floral and foresty. Horrible way to say it, but it makes sense. You now put that sample in a bag for further testing. So or in your little bucket, whatever you have, your little collection vessel, and make sure when you're done, you cover everything back up, because you don't want to disturb this area. You don't want anyone to know you're there. You don't want the microbes essentially to, like, you don't want to just come in and be like a hurricane to a small village like us, right? You want to put everything kind of back to the pieces so it can kind of go back and start recollecting from the little bits you sourced. And if you've got a big community and there's only one tree for everyone to pick from, you got to be really thoughtful of it. I mean, we the whole point of this is trying to make it available for everyone. So we don't want to just go and decimate forests and things like that. So that's why we're taking just small amounts. And then we test them at home. So for this, you find this area, you find the leaf mold soil, everything, it's passed, it's checked all the marks so far. We're still not sure. So we grab our little collection, ideally just a couple handfuls, depending on how here we have a little bit more range because there's just so much more forest to people. So it's like, maybe I can take a few handfuls and it's still not going to affect anything on a large scale. Then we get back home. We do not use this leaf mold soil now for our garden and go and rate gung ho. We now have to still conduct our testing because now it's passed all of our first checklist, but now we got to continue on. So now we start our JMS and you do it with all the proper parameters, right? We have our soft water, never colder than 18 degrees and never in an area that's going to get below 18 degrees at night, or else you have to.
Oh, good to know that. Are you talking about making JMS? Yeah, it's got to be warm.
Yeah, it's got to be over 18 degrees, never below.
And yeah, the water you start with has to be between those degrees as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like everything incorporated cannot be under 18. If your water's under 18, let it warm up first. Just it's not gonna work properly. And the way that we discern if these are good, we follow a very specific process. If we start changing the process, it's really hard to use the same tools and to get them widespread to everyone else so that we don't have any misconceptions. Right. One of the misconceptions being it's hard to make and hard to know if it's good, and that that's a horrible pathogenic soup when it's dead. But we'll get into that. So for making it, you use your soft water. You use for anyone that's a little bit less familiar, it's very simple. We boil an organic russet potato. We've got our bucket full of soft water, for me 5 gallons. I use 40 to 80 grams of organic russet potato. That's depending. So that's less than half of one medium-sized potato. So all I do is boil it, pull it out, peel it quickly, chop it, weigh it, make sure it's right, put it into a blender. I mix my sea salt with soft water and the potato in a magic bullet, and I let her rip for like 40 seconds, like far too long. That poor blender's like, why do you hate me? So I just
Is it just potato and sea salt, no water or nothing?
And water and soft water in the just actually blends properly. And I usually use I have the little standard magic bullet with like the little cup. I fill it 3/4 of the way, put the potato, put the 20 grams, and there it's a liquid enough solution to not just be a soup. So then when I add that into my 5-gallon soft water, I give it a stir with a stainless steel mixer, and it fully mixed in. I've tested the EC and the pH of it. Generally, if you have soft water, brings it right around a 6.5 because of the potato, which is one of the things that we really like about it. And then with the salt, it'll usually take us to, I think it was like 1,000 or 1,100 ppm, based off the 500 scale on the Blue Lab meter. So that's where it starts, just from there. Then we add in our leaf mold soil. So you generally take
a handful.
So this is great too, because there is parameters for the bucket. So if it's semi-dry, use 100 grams. If it was like a wetter collection, you could use 20. But we always try to get like a more dry collection, just because then it's better storage time, because we don't want to have anything that's too moist stored in a bucket or whatever your containment vessel is.
Yeah, wait, speaking of which, how long can that storage time be? Like after you like go out to the forest and you make your collection, how long can you keep that collection
so here's
on you?
I'm held, like I'm kind of strapped by only collecting a few gallons at a time.
Gotcha.
Like the most I have is like 4 gallons of leaf mold soil, which is a lot. That goes a long fucking way. So for me, that lasted.
Good workout.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that too. Yeah. Walking back. All sorts of fun stuff. And again, sustainably sourced. So I'm not taking it just from one area and like digging a bucket worth on a plate, you know, going a few. Another thing I guess I didn't really key on with the leaf mold soil collections is you ideally have collections from multiple times this season as well, and from different areas that are all close to your location, so that you're getting these different microbes that thrive at different kind of times. But for the core concept, for just if I need to go out, if I need to put something in my garden right now, I can have a JMS done from no starter, no leaf mold soil in 24 to 36 hours, depending on the temperature. Sometimes it can go up to, say, if you were like right at that 18 level or 19, yeah, now you might last closer to the 60 to the 75 hours. But that's only if you now don't want to provide an environment that's a little bit warmer to produce the JMS in, right? You can always either add one of those inside bucket heaters, or you could do it, say, inside your greenhouse or something along those lines. It's just
somewhere warm.
If it's above 18 outdoors, you want to produce it in the same environment you're applying it, because of the same theory, right? We're cultivating. But generally, that's what you do. You have microbes from different areas and different times of the season. Also, pine. Like a pine collection is a great collection. If you go out and you go, like for us, we have mainly pine forest all here, and it's hard to find like the maple grove or the birch section or whatever, but they're out there and you can find them. In the pine section, you pull out all those pines and pine cones and everything, and you start finding pine cones that are just white, that just dissolve completely. They're fully decomposed, right? And there's tons of IMO in there. That's still good, but you never use pine for more than 1/3 of your overall collection. So now I can fast forward again. We've got our collection, our new one that we haven't tried. And maybe
your collections can last a while if they're stored in a cool, dry place. And ideally, you want to take a different collection, a different time of year, and at a different location.
Yeah, I guess what I was stumbling to get to, and thanks for kicking me back on the drive with that one.
Sorry.
Because I have my 4 gallons and I mix 100 grams at a time. Well, 4 gallons is a lot of 100 grams. I've been able to, like 2 years almost, like a year.
Okay, cool.
A year solid that I've been using before I used it all up, and I didn't start having detrimental JMSs. I didn't start seeing slower progression. I didn't start having any sort of issues. And I'll address, or I'll figure out where it says the storage in the book, but it's like a lot longer than anyone is talking about right now. We've got a lot of kind of misconceptions going out online that I'm not really sure where they're coming from.
Okay, y'all, I feel like Drake is speaking so freaking fast for me this morning. I feel the same way. Drake, take it down for me. Like, I love you. They just said you broke the world record of gold nuggets per minute. I love it.
For real.
You did.
I'm going to have to slow this down on the replay.
I feel like I have to put the slow-mo on to listen to this.
Let me go get my pipe.
Yeah. Drake, fuck. I love the information you're spewing today. You're doing awesome. I'm not knocking you.
I always feel like I'm just like, running my mouth and not making sense and stuttering.
No, you're awesome.
I really appreciate any of that, and apologies if I do ever run on and everyone's like, can this guy ever shut up? Hey,
no. We're loving what you're saying. That I just wanted to reassure it, but like, damn, yes, you can ramble. But what he says, and if you can catch up, is so true, because I've been working with some amazing mentors offline. We've actually had a call with Chris Trump the other day. And so did we not, Green Goddess? You were even here, huh? And Dragonfly Earth Medicine. And so like we work with some ballers behind the scenes, and we're really lucky to have them get to mentor for us.
It's like the opposite. Like we're normal, like most of us, we have to like watch the video and we put it in like 1.5 or like 1.7 so we can get through. Everyone with me is like, do we have like a 0.5 or like a 0.25?
That's what I was thinking, Drake.
Like,
I know. I feel like we're like the chipmunks. The Green Goddess and I must sound like we're like, what are we?
A long time ago, when I first came on your show, I said, Drake, can you like slow it down for me so I could understand what you're saying? It's all good now. Don't worry about it, Drake, because I could go back on the video and I could slow it down myself and watch it later. And I'm going to take notes. but I'm really excited about everything that we're talking about right now. I'm a very visual person. That's how I learn. I could read a book till I'm blue in the face, and I just won't really get it until I'm doing it hands-on. And then that's how I learn, and that's how I figured it out. So by having this talk, it was nice to clarify some things that I can't just immediately clarify in the book. And I don't really go on Facebook, so I'm not really on the whole KNF Jadam Facebook group anymore.
Me either. I don't do Facebook.
I do really enjoy those groups. There's a lot of awesome information. So
enjoy them.
Exactly. It is or it isn't. It's if you're on or you're not.
Too many social media things for me to keep up with.
Yeah.
Really,
I'm doing a bad job at all of them.
Things to do. I don't know.
Oh, cheers. We got some new listeners in the house.
This is a really great deep dive. I love it.
Well, and speaking about the books and everything, let's just jump on those real quickly. It is not very straightforward for the average bird to be able to figure out. We're so blessed, as Tara mentioned, we've got some mentors on the back end and people that understand the concepts, people that speak multiple languages, especially Korean, because there's a lot of this information that's only in videos in Korean with really patchy subtitles to English that are really hard to fucking understand. And like, I was just watching recently from 2016 with Ray Yoon that was pretty well listening to this Dr. Nam, which is a really good friend of Hank Yu, that was doing a lot of the testing with, like, for over 10 years, he's been doing testing with them and all the different natural pesticides and so on and so forth. But there's a video and it's like, Ray is like half repeating and then saying a little bit in English what they're saying, but in Korean. And it's like 16 minutes and you get like 5 minutes of actual like English context and you have to like put it together. So there's a lot of confusing things. There's things like Sarah and I both have the second edition Jadam organic farming book.
I have the same one.
We figured we could reference pages and talk to each other. Well, we can't, even though we've got the second edition and there's only one second edition ever printed. We're about 4 pages different. Yeah. So it makes things extremely hard to be like, oh yeah, go to page this. And so I'm telling someone, oh, someone's got a question on Facebook and I answer, oh, in my book, it's page 160, go to this. And they're like, this has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I'm like, don't you have the second edition? And they're like,
yeah, I love that. I love that when you ask a question, they refer back to the book.
So the other thing that we've got to really keep in mind, and this is something that this is old information, but it's new information. It's old information that's been lost and trying to be interpreted from Korean into English again, right? So there was some interpreters that helped with these books. We actually had one of them on, Ray Yoon, and he was one of the interpreters that helped do this. And hopefully we'll get him back on because Drake, he lives up by Drake, and Drake's been contacting them, I think, and he's been. So maybe we'll get
talking about some of our pesticide trials with him.
Oh, okay, cool. And also there's the new book that just came out. If anybody is interested, is this Jadam one right here. And actually, I haven't read a lot of it. I just started reading about the aphids because that was in the first front, and I think I identified an aphid that I had. And the colors and the pictures are like there's some nice. There are some very nice ones. Now, there might be some in here that maybe don't have to do with our area. Now we have to be, realize that there could be some bugs in here that we don't even get here in the United States. I don't know. I haven't looked all the way through the book yet. So I go online and look at a lot of resources. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have that book, but I'm curious, as far as you have read out of it so far, what is a lot of their methodologies for pest management? Is it like a lot of JLF, foliar trees?
Sunchoke and bracken is the sunchoke JHS and bracken JHS are the two main ones. If those fail, then move on to ginkgo. If ginkgo doesn't work, you can use oleander. Oleander is one that's pretty nuclear, so we use it as a kind of a last term. Go ahead, Tara.
So this book right here, we found out that basically anything in here can probably be used as a pesticide in one form or another. But like Drake is saying, the ones that he's saying is multiple. What were you gonna say?
Everything in that book, every 100 herbs are shown to work with spider mites and aphids, is what we recently found out, which is awesome. That was super cool. So every herb in that book should allegedly work for spider mites and aphids. Now there's about six to nine that are general insecticides overall. And that's where we get like the pokeweed, the Korean passiflower, the ginkgo, the sunchoke, the bracken, and the oleander, and there's a couple others, but those are like those are the main staples. On the specific farm where we're reading, they used, I believe, just bracken and applied ginkgo once. Only needed ginkgo once the whole season, but that's kind of like the way to go. Bracken's generally really easy for people to find and to source sustainably, and sunchokes are down here a problem for most people. They grow their weeds pretty well for most people, right? So, and we can utilize the whole sunchoke, the leaf, the stalk, the tubers, which are best. On the ginkgo, you can utilize pretty much everything, the leaves, the fruit, but the rind is what's key and what you make the most potent. HSO.
And Gingerbug, one of our friends in chat, says that she's been playing with the bracken. It's highly effective. Yeah, we've been chatting with her about, we've been.
Some people are using the Jerusalem artichoke. Are you guys using Jerusalem artichoke?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. Just because it's so easy.
That's the sunchoke, Jerusalem artichoke. That's the same thing.
Yeah, that's one term.
Just how much I know my plants.
No. It's hard. It's because translation is just different. Like, it's amazing. Like, so many things that one person calls it this in this area, and it's called this in another area. That's why it's so good we're all talking about this, and we need to say all those names. Just like bracken fern. I thought bracken fern was really one of the only fern out there, but I forgot. It's been a long time since I actually went and sat down and went, oh my God, there's so many other kinds of ferns. I literally was like, duh. And so, like, there's another fern out there, and I can't remember the name of it. It's also in that book, and it also will work. So it's another fern. Huh?
The fiddleheads? I can't remember if that's
it might be that one. It might be that one. I'm not good with
either way. And another thing in the book is he says there's a proper procedure for testing out new plants, especially ones that are toxic and nauseous, like with oleander. I'm not boiling it inside here and breathing it all in because it can kill you. Not to scare anyone, but just like there's certain things that are a little bit, more SOPs than others. So if you're trying to work with new plants that are either toxic or poisonous, because those are the ones you're recommended to work with, because usually those are the ones with the best insecticidal properties, so on and so forth. You don't want to be doing it outside and doing your boiling out there and being careful with it, maybe wearing gloves when you're canning it and everything. But then when we actually dilute it and use this, we recently went through, and I shared, it's funny you mentioned on Facebook, I shared it on one of the groups there because people were worried about bracken fern for it being like having carcinogenic compounds.
That's the tight part about being part of that Facebook group, though, is that you are up to date with people's shit that they're doing and that's working out well for them.
So I'm quite concerned about using bracken. So instead, just as like don't worry about that, we went through on the back end and did a rundown of oleander, which is along with like the digitalis and the pokeweed, it's pretty much the most poisonous, and not like 3 grams could kill someone my size. A 70-kilo human, 3 grams of leaf would kill you. So and like if you had a bruise and you let a leaf sit on your bruise and you've got heart problems already, it could stop your heart. So it's like it's serious. So you don't want to play with these things. Now, when we carefully with gloves take this in the proper proportions and boil it down, being careful to gather like SOPs, mask, whatever you need, just be overly cautious, of course, have your SOPs. Then once we jar it and now we dilute it, and then we spray it, the dilutions in which it's sprayed, we worded it this way, which is kind of funny, chasing people around. If you were to spray this on your flower, so if you're spraying oleander in flower and the plants didn't process any of it, you would have to smoke 100 grams worth of concentrate within a day made from that flower, considering the plant didn't absorb any of it, even though all JHS is 100% nutrient, 100% nutritional. But if it didn't absorb any of it, which does, you would have to smoke 100 grams of concentrate to get to a level in which you could die. So it's
some people do that though.
100 grams. I feel like I'd be a contender with some of these guys, but yeah, no, it's still well within the realm of safety. Like with the JS there's a video specifically where they're spraying JS like in the Jam videos where they're like spraying each other with it and like laughing and like they're not worried about it. They are definitely on the it is safe. Now I'm not telling anyone to spray yourself in the face with the product, but just know these people have been doing it for a very long time. There's a lot of testing into a lot of these products and they're not having issues. Only thing I want to key in, and I know we're rambling again here in this one.
That's okay.
This one little part. This is from Dr. Nam. This is in the endorsement pages of the new book. Dr. Chung Woo Nam I am the one who's researched natural pesticide developed by Mr. Cho for more than 10 years at a national research institute in order to scientifically prove it, and I, therefore, can distinctly appreciate its value. He thinks this is going to be, I dare to say this book, Jadam Organic Pest and Disease Control, will be the best gift for mankind for the 21st century. And yeah, we can talk about it being biased because this is like friends and stuff, but this is someone that worked at a very reputable institute. I was hoping that it said it right there. It says it somewhere in here, but it's not BS, I assure you. It was like where are we at? Whatever, I'll find it and I'll bring it up eventually. But yeah, so there's definitely been a lot of studying going on, and that's in pertaining to the JMPs and the JS. And I've actually got parts in this book and in the old book that go over the test results for those specific compounds, for the sulfur. Here we go. For the sulfur, for the JWA, and for a Korean pasky flower JNP. And the test is for 320 items. They use the LC-MS/MS, GC-MS/MS, GC-MS, GC. So they'd use the what is it? The liquid chromatography mass spectrometers, gas chromatography beds. So they weren't screwing around. They were doing proper testing in which you would
test.
Yeah, and we've got, get the book so you can see, but we've got all the examples of all the things that were not found in there that they were tested for, the signatures from the text that we're doing it. So we're not very worried about it. And again, they only did it with the one JMP, but they did it with the Korean pasky flower, which is on the scale of ones that could be dangerous. It is up there. So there it's I don't know, a lot of misconceptions out there.
Well, the poison's in the dose, and what poisons one may not poison another. So things that could be harmful to like little bugs might not be harmful at all to us.
And in the range, right, we're diluting
animals or too,
And let me also say, for the oleander comparison I did, that was using the highest dilutions you would ever consider using. That's not the the tenfold less, or what we usually use for mitigation or infestation or prevention. That would be like if you're doing emergency doses. So we're pretty confident and pretty happy.
Have you done any Jadam herbal solutions on your plants?
Yes, definitely.
Which one?
So I'm the one that I'm using right now is bracken as well. Really loving the bracken. I ran out of sunchoke, and I initially did ginkgo. I made a ginkgo one, but I had to order dry leaves just from like Etsy, and we just weren't really.
I was going to ask, can you order that online?
Some places can. Tara's lucky; she has one in her city hall, a ginkgo tree, and I've heard I've got one in a town an hour and a half away. So I'm probably going to go in the fall when there should be rinds, because I think we have a male and a female. Ginkgos are boy and girl. Some don't yield fruit, but like I said, the leaves will work.
Hey, do you guys want to trade some ginkgo leaves for some seeds?
Our nursery actually has a ginkgo tree, and I was going to go buy and plant one.
I went looking.
But there's also a friend we have in chat that has them growing wildly all over in their area. So we have friends that we can hook up and find these things for you. Yeah.
Tight.
But yes, using them on the plants. Here, I'll just quickly pull up my little weekly calendar here. Let's go to when I'm going to be doing my spraying here. All right, so I'll have my first flowering. Oh, that's the flowering feeding come up. So then if I go back to.
Oh, Wheatus, I just have to say that's some of the most amazing concentrate I tried is that motor breath. Motor breath.
Yeah, I was surprised you liked it.
It was, well, shit, it got me high. I loved it.
So for my weekly sprays here, I'm gonna this is going against I'm using soft water. I have 6.5 gallons. It comes out to about 24 liters is what I make at a time. I use a liter of JMS, healthy JMS with that. I use 240 mils of our Jadam wetting agent, and I use 480 mils of my bracken fern JHS. Load all that. I mix half the soft water, mix it with soap vigorously. That's key process. You mix half your amount, you mix your soap in. Go ahead, Tara.
This is where soft water comes into play.
Yes,
when you're working with the soaps or the wetting agent or however you want to call it.
Here's a great thing to key in on. It's I worked myself in a situation recently where I had my 6 gallons worth of soft water, but I needed that for my sprayer. So I couldn't use that to make my JMS. And I use like my dehumidifiers and I repurify the water. So I only have a certain amount of actual soft water that comes through. I don't have an RO where I can just fill it up yet.
Okay.
So because of that, I was like, okay, well, look, I have to use this 6 gallons from my sprayer. I can't make JMS with it, or else I'd have to use hard water, and that'll completely destroy the efficacy of my JWA. Hard water mangles JWA, and it's really, if you do the proper testing, you'll know right off the bat. So what I did was I made my JMS with hard water, but I used the 6 gallons of soft water to be the main fill for my sprayer. Now, by doing the math and adding in only 1 liter of the hard water JMS, it came to 47 or 48 ppm. So that's under our threat. You never really want to be over 50 ppm. I think it's 100 is the max, but I'm pretty sure 50 is the general rule of thumb. So I just slid under in an acceptable manner. And when you mix it, you can see you'll get a tiny bit of discoloration, but it won't be the same. Like if you add JW to hard water, it gets like murky. If you add it to soft water, it's completely clear. Then you do your spray test on, say, like the clone dome, it'll be completely sheened, or it'll be all beady. If you have hard water, it'll be a little bit more beady, and you can go, oh, you son of a gun. Whereas with soft water, it's completely sheened. It's a total, complete coverage, which is what you want. So anyways, because I added that in there, it worked out. So you can get a little cheeky sometimes, what we're saying, but overall, you need soft water for your sprays. It's just too risky not to use it. Not saying it won't work and that you can't get through and that it's not completely possible, but it's like, why'd I put frickin' 87 into my Ferrari, right? You got to put high end, like it just doesn't make sense. So I go out there once a week. I do the foliar applications with the JMS JLFs. I either go after sun, like when sundown's just happening, and then we get the microbes that are able to go up there. But generally the sprays are done first thing in the morning around 5 a.m., solid hour or two before the sun comes up, and get good spread. Got to get good spread, and always bottom up. I have the Petro sprayer, a nice long wand, which is great. So you always start from your furthest bottom up, go around it like a Christmas tree, and then from top down. You save a lot more solution, and you actually get proper spread. If you go from the top down, all the leaves just fall down, and you don't get any of the little pests and bastards that are underneath it. So you need to start bottom up. I do that once a week, and great results. I had done a preliminary sulfur, a Jadam sulfur spray, just because that's the regimen. You never want to do it more than like 3 times in a plant's life, but generally when we first put them outside, we get them outside. We do our JS spray first thing in a morning. So you only want to have half an hour to an hour of set time, because otherwise you can start getting sulfur damage, even at the safe ratios of sulfur. Then after that, once it's dried completely, usually that following evening or the next morning, depending, then we hit it with our JMS JNP, the herbal solution at the JMS, because now we killed off anything that's bad, any of the pathogens. The sulfur dealt with everything. As soon as it's now dry, it's become less efficacious. So now we hit it with our indigenous microbes, because we need to protect that leaf area. Pathogens. Now, if we have any big rains that come and happen, everyone thinks rainwater is awesome. Not so much. We don't trust all of those IMO that come from that rainwater. We don't necessarily know what came up and what's coming down, and it's been shown that occasionally it doesn't always turn out to be beneficial. So after rainfall, as soon as it dries off again, we usually try to get out there. And if we just recently did a JMS, you can't go too hard, but you can usually sneak in a 1 to a 100 application. I'm usually JMSing 1 to 25. That's the maximum dilution you want to go for a JMS spray. We can take it down to 1 to 100 or even 1 to 200 just to get something on there as like a midpoint spray if the rain comes down, to get those good IMO back on. Same thing for me.
So why are you doing 1 to 25?
1 to 25 is the maximum ratio of JMS you would ever spray. 1 to 10 is what you do for your foundational work, which is just for the first month prior to planting. 1 to 20 is the highest you would ever do on a plant that's growing. And 1 to 25 is the highest you ever do foliar. All this stuff can be notched back insane. For JMS, 1 to 20 is the highest you'd ever go on a living plant. 1 to 1300 is the lowest you can go and still see benefits. So like in this, there's a 100-acre farm where there's a family of 6 that are maintaining it, and they do dilutions that are more similar to that, 1 to 1,000 and stuff.
That's
because
what I was thinking. You've got a bigger grow. You only got so much of the solution to use. So
and you don't have rainwater, right? You wait for the rain, you make your JMS, you get that applied, and you use the rain to get it in there. And it has to go deep. If your JMS isn't going deep, it's not working properly. It's not supposed to go in the first foot. It's supposed to go deep. That's the whole point. So there's another thing, and like jam isn't made for people under 2 acres. There's another. I hear people saying that jam's for like the small hobby farmer stuff. I'm like, what? The whole book is for 2 acres or more. That's the whole principle. We've got in our little Discord, we've got how to make the sulfur in a quart jar, how to make the JMS in 5 gallons. We've made it in as small as 2 gallons. Tara did it square just to prove that the microbes don't spin like this. They circulate like this, and that's why it pulls away from the outside, and we get that definitive ring that indicates all the life. Once we start, I see so many failed JMSs, sorry to rabbit hole, but once the foam.
I totally did that. I had a failed JMS. It didn't work out well. And then now I'm kind of considering, is it the soil that I used, or is it something I didn't do right?
It could be a million things. What you should do before you make your first JMS, you should go out, and I think you should at least collect like 4 places. I feel like you should go find 4. Start with 4, or at least 2. At least 2, because you need something to compare it to. You just need something to start.
And it's just always good. It's encouraged to have as many. That's why I mentioned before, as many collections for tons of the season as possible. But if we're going just like head for head and you need to make it quick, then yeah, you only need 1 collection. It's diverse as can be, and it's from your area.
But starting out.
And what we didn't get into was, we've got our leaf mold soil now, the conversation we led into, but how do we know if it's good or not? We've checked all the other parameters, but what do? Okay, we make our JMS. So that was where I was at with, you take a little bit of potato, a little bit of sea salt, you mix it in your soft water, you stir it up so that the salt and everything's dissolved, because otherwise you're throwing microbes into freaking way too salty of water, and they don't like that. So you gotta make sure it's dissolved.
The potato, dude, it is so important that the potato is not chunky. If you do not want chunks in this water. It's so important there's not big chunks or floating, because debris will interfere with you being able to really tell if this is good for your first time. It's really important.
And if you have,
I saw that Lala did that. She had 2. We were just talking about it, and then I saw that she shared it. She had 2 buckets, one with the lid, one without a lid.
And
what you saying?
So with it, if you have like a magic blender, or a magic bullet, you can just run the crap out of it. But that's not really, they don't have that luxury in the places where, like in Korea, for example. So what they do is they just boil their potato, put it into a clean sock, no detergent, nothing, like a nice clean, or some organic cheesecloth or something. And then they would just mix it in there, mulch it in there, and you can leave the sock in there, or you can remove it. So there we go. We can see right in the middle, we've got a sock with some potato in there. It's going to have a rock in it to keep it weighed down, because we don't want it floating up. You see a lot of people with the sock floats up, and then it makes it really hard to just tell if you have a proper collection. It's kind of skewing.
That's a 35-gallon bucket.
Yeah, and then when you mix your potato in there really good with your salt and your soft water, then you add in your leaf mold soil. So if you have your little sock, you just knead it in real nicely. You be real gentle with it, knead it in there, get a nice amount of you'll know right off the bat if you got a good leaf mold collection, because it'll all just dissolve right away, and you just have a little bit of particulate left in there. Be nice and dark. Then I give it a nice little stir. Lots of the ways you can leave something just like this. So you have those pieces of wood that are on the back, and those hold the sock, and you can leave the sock in there. It's said, like by Young Sang, that it is a little bit better if you're able to leave the sock with the leaf mold soil in there. And he even occasionally has a sock with rock dust, because you can spice up your JMS with a little bit of rock dust as well.
Interesting. I was about to say, when you're talking about adding the rocks, depending what the rock is, would that add in rock dust?
Yes, technically, just
minerals of some sort, but different ones. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
It can, but it doesn't have enough period of time to really actually mineralize at that point. There's other ways of adding those minerals in, as the rock dust, because it actually sits in the ferments and stuff. Wouldn't you say, Drake?
More water soluble.
So the rock dust input, if you actually have like a secondary sock that's going in, it can definitely work in the JMS just fine as well. But it's never, like, we can always use more. The rock dust you can go pretty high in. So we have like a specific rock dust JLF. We've got other JLFs that have the rock dust added to it, and then we just factor all of that in when we're
No. But she's saying, could that one rock that she's putting there actually add it? And not technically, not really, because it doesn't have enough time to really demineralize. The rock's not going to break down.
Yeah, but I think that's what he was getting at.
Add a crystal in there if you feel like it feels like it.
I am good on crystals. That's what I do. I'm a weirdo. I don't care. I like crystals. I like rocks.
Well, then perfect. Even if you got a crystal, you throw the crystal in to weight it down. That's generally just if you're leaving your sock in there. So you kind of tie it over your stick, you leave it in there, you cover the lid so no sun gets in. If you're worried about that, you have the luxury of a blender for your potato. You blend it all, stir it in, add your leaf mold soil in your sock. Just, mangle it a bunch so it gently mangles the wrong term, but knead it really nicely so it all goes in there. And then you can remove that sock out, and then you can place your lid on top so that there's nothing in there. It's just the leaf mold soil, the salt, and the potato, and the soft water. And then you can kind of watch it. You move the lid slowly. Sometimes the lid will get water on the top of it if you have it too closed. And then you go to move it, the water drops on the top, and now it's skewed what you're looking at. Because if there's any breaks in it, that's technically a bad JMS. So now you've made your JMS. Temperature is going to matter. If it's over 18 degrees, it's most likely will not finish fat. Like I had ones finish really quickly, but if it's 18 degrees, it's going to be closer to the 72 hours. If you're at like 40 degrees, you can get pretty quick JMSs. Like I had one finish in under 16 hours that kind of threw me for a loop, and I had to start making multiple JMSs at different times just so I'd figure out the time frame. And that's just simply because I didn't want to set them in a constant environment in my garage. I could have definitely done that, keep it easy, keep it repeatable, but I like to have the microbes flourishing in the environment. So perfect. So here, you let your JMS sit, and you come to a point where it starts to pull away from the edge. When it's pulling away from the edge, we're getting that cycling of microbes. We're getting really high microbial activity. And the difference in the microbe from your peak potency to just an hour or two later can be tenfold. From like, billions, hundreds of millions to like a few million, which is still going to be great, but it's incrementally different when you're applying these on higher diluted levels. So you'll see that it gets this layer, it gets some foam, and then it pulls away from the side. And when it pulls away from the side, you got a nice pizza in the middle. You've got no breaks. It's not sheeny. The picture is kind of hard to tell because it's a flash, but there's no sheen on it. You have that nice pizza ring in the middle, you'll know that it's of a good quality. Some JMSs, they won't make that proper ring. Some collections, some will actually start to go a little funky, and you'll be like, that looks weird. Yeah. It's ridiculous that start forming in there. That's no good. But generally, it'll just either be a little bit more active or a little bit less active. Most leaf mold collections work from what we've experienced, but there is a bit of a threshold for timing. If it's hot out, you've got less. If it's cooler, you've got a longer period of use. But every time it'll start to really show you that outside edge. And on larger ones and on really healthy ones, you really get like this kind of ripple event, and you can see like different waves of the microbe. Yeah. Once it actually starts pushing back to the outside, you get really foamy. Like people think it looks better because it's more foamy and pushing back to the outside. That's actually indication that it's just the microbes' bodies. That's what the foam is. It's all the microbial life that's dead. And then when it pushes back out to the outside, it's indicating there's not enough microbes in there generating enough force to keep that centralized ring of other dead microbes. So that's all it is, the bubbling and everything, activity and dead microbes.
Here is a failed attempt. This is
when it's broken up like that.
Nope, this is chunks of potato. This is what happens when you get chunks of potato in there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Keep it in the sock.
Yeah, keep it. Well, what happened was I was pouring it in my sock above it, and part of it poured in out of the blender, and it wasn't meshed up enough. And it didn't. It fell. I just accidentally got some chunks in there, and I figured, it'll be all right. Nope.
Here, I did a 15 or a 20 gallon one. I can't remember what it was, but this one is a really good indication of what a healthy JMS can look like, because we see there's a very, very clear exterior ring. And then we get multiple levels. I was saying, kind of like the waves of the microbes. So easily here, if it looks like this, you're in the good. We've got a very clear, like a 2-inch ring on the outside. Then we've got the multiple levels, just indicating how much movement, how much life is going on in there. So that's like your peak. And then from there, it slowly starts to get foamy, and people would go, oh my God, that looks awesome. There's way more life. But now we've got kind of this cracking in the middle. The ring around the outside is less. Yes, there's way more foam, and visually it might look cool, but it's actually negative. That's actually a dying pot. So you want to be very specific and careful with when we're making this. And there's a lot of learning curves, right? But with any of these natural farming techniques, there's usually quite a bit to them. And I see a lot of people taking more kind of, I don't want to say shortcuts, but really doing a lot of modifying and changing. And like some of this practice, it's like, yes, you have to incorporate it to your environment, but it's more like you're really changing small things to incorporate into your environment, more using different things as opposed to changing core concepts and coming up with like new ideas and takes. And I see a lot of that, and I'm not sure where some of them come from. So it's kind of nice to just go through with like a fine tooth comb and really figure out the exact ins and outs. And like, even with what I'm doing, I keep saying I'm like an 80% run at Amsterdam this season, because I didn't have every amendment ready. I hadn't sourced all of them from here. I hadn't done all the proper applications on time with the full.
I truly feel like no one out there right now runs a full 100% Jadam KNF full farm, and unless you're maybe Chris Trump, like there, or unless you're Master Cho, okay, like, and a couple maybe other people. But there's right now, there are so many things that we're learning that people didn't understand because of, like, again, there are the communicational difficulties between Korean and us English, trying to understand some of this stuff. Just the simple terminology of, they used to say, go out to a forest and collect. Well, when you say forest around here, I say pine trees. That's the forest.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the first thing. That's the first thing I did, was like, hey, I'm going to a pine tree. And
that's what I did.
You know, so it was just simple words like that. So that's why we're really trying to break it down for everybody as simple as we can and use the correct wording. We're really trying to get on board with trying to use the correct word, because y'all know how hard it is to relearn stuff once you learn stuff, right? Oh, I love it. So what, any other questions? Where are we at? What green is chat? Am I missing any questions in chat? You guys are amazing in chat today, by the way. You guys are just like hanging out. Yeah.
And let me retouch, just because now I'm we'll see what I'm doing here. So when I read that little excerpt from Dr. Nam, he talks about studying, he's the one who's researched a natural pesticide for more than 10 years at a national research institute in order to scientifically prove it. Well, here in our other book, just to be sure, in the back, in just a little back section, a little forward, talking about what they've done, what they made, just a little recap. JMS. It's a microbial solution made by cultured microorganisms from leaf mold and water, feeding them potatoes or another medium. It's a power soil quality improver and can also be used for keeping pathogens in check. Okay, that means foliar. That's weird. Then when we go into JMS-JHS pesticide, pesticides made with JMS and JHS and JWA. So that means they've been studied at this institute for 10 years by Dr. Chung-Woo Nam. So we've also got the results from the test there, indicating that there's no microbials and no fails on any sorts. So it's showing here that from the studying that's been done by those who read the book, we could see that we should be pretty safe to use these. But there's a lot of
anything's got to be safer than Roundup. That shit's fucking ridiculous.
Oh my goodness, yeah, yeah, you got that right.
And let alone it's being sued because of cancer right now, and
I heard that,
but can still be on the shelf. I mean, like, really?
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Why can you still sell that when you know it causes cancer? I just don't get it. But you know what? It shows that no one is looking out for our health. We are responsible for our own health, and we have to take our own health into our own hands. And this is why we're here. We're growing amazing medicine for ourselves.
Yeah, 100%.
And learning how to do it free, empowering ourselves. So we're not going to have to buy nutrients from people. We're going to save money by being able to just go out naturally and collect what's good for us. It's amazing. I love this. I'm really dedicated to this natural farming. But what I'm saying is no one has really done Jadam or KNF for more than a couple years in a row. Like in cannabis, they're all learning new things. They're all learning, apply this when they apply flour, apply this when they turn to vet, when they're turning, and this, like, they're all learning as we're learning, you guys. This is on, like, even though it's old stuff, it hasn't been really done with cannabis on a big scale, and people aren't talking about it. So it's kind of breaking ground in a way, right, Drake?
You got that right. And hey, we want to talk about JMS being bad. My business partner just had a bath. He was up to his neck in a big 50-gallon bin of JMS last night and loved it. So I don't know. Let's see if he dies. If he dies, we'll recalculate. He ain't going to die, I'll tell you that. And just because I hate to not misspeaking, but not describing things to the fullest when it's specifically pertaining to, like, say, fucking scientific studies, the National Institute of Horticultural and Herbal Science in Korea is where Dr. Chung Woon Nam has done all his studies. So I didn't want to just say, oh, he studied somewhere reputable, but it was the National Institute of Horticultural and Herbal Science in Korea is where this information has been studied. He studied it for over 10 years, stringently. So there's a fair amount of work in it, and I also, there's lots of stuff going on. So I think it's time for a dab. As we know, I've just been rambling. So let's get a little elevated, and maybe I can slow down to like regular speed. I doubt it, but I'll try.
Well, I've been like learning recently more and more about organic growing with organic in general, the whole Elaine Ingham soil food web style of doing things, and then you're introducing KNF and how the two can argue, and I see why. But if you understand how the microbial world works, there is no necessarily what's good and what's bad, because everybody feeds with each other.
They're barely identifying these, though. They're barely Elaine's barely identifying.
I think I don't know, but I'm trying my best.
The good and the bad are one. That's what we're taught. The good and the bad are one. You can have too much good and it can be bad. You can have too much bad and it can be bad. You can have a little bit of bad with the good and they can work in a mutualistic way. It's fucking pretty fantastic. Check out Zentanol. Matthew Gates, you want to learn about some things that are mutualistic, parasitic, beneficial. He's been throwing a whole bunch of information out there. So it's neat to see these different interactions. What Tara brings up is with basic microscopy, and even the people that are pioneers in the field that are extremely educated are kind of like, it's visual identification is arrow in the quiver for sure, but it's something that you got to be very cautious with. There's so many things like yeast being a fungi that identifies as a bacteria under the microscope, and just all sorts of different shit that we're not super aware of, and we're admittedly know what 2%, less than 5% of the microorganisms that are out there. So how are we going to make an identification and tell me if this is
what's good, what's bad,
based off of our understanding? It's like, okay, sort of the 2% we know this looks like a beneficial collection kind of thing. And I'm skewing it, and I like much love and respect to everyone that's doing the work and educating themselves and being able to identify with these things and going through it. I respect all of you. It just quivers. It's all quivers, right? Like, just like with all my analytical shenanigans I'm doing and testing things out and seeing it. It's just, if someone wants to take the information I'm giving them and use it as one of their little arrows and just like, okay, I think this should work, then perfect. And if not, that's no problem. So let's dab it up.
We were talking about natural farming in general, like other countries. What is everybody, like all the ancestors all over all the world, what have they done for natural farming? Can we take that, put all this information together to make the perfect piece, a super simple formula that we can make ourselves and not have to go out and buy it? And you could apply it to your cannabis plants, and you can apply it to your food as well. Either way, it's super healthy. Whether you have like a small tent garden, or whether you have an outdoor garden, or whether you have acres and acres of stuff that you're feeding to the community. So you want to make sure everybody's getting everything that they need. I believe that that's like in the microbial world, especially in good bacterias and fungi. So have you all seen that fantastic fungi on Netflix? Like, if you haven't seen it,
right.
it's on Netflix now.
I bought it when it first came out, man.
That's fucking tight, dude. They showed this. I told you I'm a very visual person, man. Now, like, my mind is more open to like the fungi world more than it has been before, because I'm learning certain things.
Mushrooms are amazing, baby.
Yes. And some of
Cheers,
them can kill, like,
there. Thanks for joining us today.
Some of the mushrooms can be they could attack pests, certain pests in your garden. So like ants and mosquitoes and shit like that.
Fungus gnats, you tried them on. They've had
Brandon Russ kept going on about that. Certain bacteria that could I think it's bacteria, or was it fungi? Bacillus subtilis that can attack gnats and shit like that. So that's something else I want to learn. Like, how do I incorporate all of these things?
You got that right. I remember first hearing about those patents that Paul had worked with probably a couple of seasons ago now, and was just looking so hard to try and figure them out. And I'm so happy that they're they're a little bit more widespread, and like I could at least learn about them a bit more and see like it's something that has to do with, they found it in a fungi that was infesting termites, and we're able to isolate it and then try, and like you said with some of these pests and the fungus gnats, and like I think 5 or 6 different things he tried, he said we've had nothing that's been unaffected by it. It's all worked well, so it could have a really large beneficial properties. But who knows? Like, who knows if you apply this to your area, if all the insect, like can we target it specifically to a certain insect? And this is the stuff that I'm not sure. Maybe they did that already. Maybe they've already got a certain pheromone, for lack of better words, that only the termites are attracted to, so then they go there, because it was really cool that they could like affect them to these ants, and like I'll get into it a little bit because it's so cool in nature.
Yes.
Okay.
What, Tara? What you got?
I'm just saying, is everybody, we wanting to continue down this pathway, or are we wanting to continue on to our next live? And where are we at?
I'm good with whatever. I'm always good.
Good. I could hang on to it for a little while longer.
Okay, I didn't know how much time we all have with everybody. Where are we going?
We're talking about, I want to talk more about fungi. Like, so if you're doing a complete Jadam style of growing your plants, are you introducing fungi through like the leaf mold soil? Okay.
I
believe it around.
I think it's an interesting concept that JMS is considered to be not fungal at all. I understand through some basic microscopy, there's maybe more advanced, I don't mean to, through microscopy, through whatever means, there's been discerned that it's potentially bacterially dominant. There's just a lot of factors that I have learning more about it, like I don't know necessarily who's done the research, where'd they learn their microscopy, who reviewed this from them, how'd they make their JMS, where'd they get their leaf mold soil, how is their salt proper, did they time it right, did they search it right when is it peak potency? There's just too many variables and not enough conclusive evidence based on these claims to like, I love empirical evidence, like it's great, and just like, right, if you're going to do testing like we do, just write the shit down. We don't have to be some crazy scientist to do testing, we just got to write it down and show what our study was, and as long as we can keep it pretty tight and not add like 15 different scenario.
It has to be recreatable though. Like that's like, and we have to recreate that, right? And so many times people don't think of the variables in things. The variables are so important. People don't think about that.
If we only know a few percentage of this life forms, how do we know what thrives where? And then like there's like, of course we want to make an anaerobic, mainly anaerobic, of course, just the microbes cycling. There's like, how do those bubbles get there, right? There's obviously not completely stagnant in there. There's microbes.
And it smells kind of yeasty when you smell it. It's like, it's alive. It's alive.
To assume that most things aren't going to proliferate there and it's only going to be bad is an interesting assumption. But again, JMS is included in the JNP, and those trials, those have been studied for the last 10 years. I'd love to get some more information on that, like to be able to speak with Young Sang or Dr. Nam specifically. It's just very hard because they're very busy. You have to ask very, very precise, simple, small questions, and you're going to get a very blatant answer back. So and not like we're trying, we got people in connection with them, it's not like we're not, like that's another thing you're doing, like there's so many layers, it's like an onion for sure, a Janam onion that we're just stuck in the middle of, but there's so much to it just in pertaining to like making a JMS and testing it that we really need to have it done on a very high level. We have to have a lot of certainties to be able to even have a product that we could test, and then we need someone that's really reputable that's testing it, and then it's just like, this is for a quiver. This is, if we can admit that we only know a few percent of what's in there, then we don't know how everything proliferates. What I was saying with the anaerobic, our soil is not air, like we don't have air stones in the bottom of my beds outdoors, right? Like it's an anaerobic zone, the top little bit, of course it gets worked by the insects and stuff, and we got some oxygen coming in there, but the JMS is being worked by microbes the whole time. There's millions and billions of microbes in there. So we're going to say that they're not adding any sort of element to it. I don't know about that, but.
And
have you ever heard about wood chip ferment?
What? Go ahead.
Sorry. Have you heard about wood chip ferment?
I should say no in that specific context, but like what we do a lot of, like we have a specific duck bedding and it's duck bedding, which is the wood chips and the straw and the duck bedding and their manure, and we mix out a certain proportion, and you have that for a JLF. So
nice with water and
yeah, of course, the exact same parameters. You don't need any liquid JLFs if you're doing Jadam following the core, right? You can just have your base fertilizer, which is your crop residual and your cover crop that you cut down in the season and the companion plants that grow with it. You cut your cover crop in the beginning of the year, plant right into it. You've got everything. If you're not raping sorry for better terms, if you're not pillaging your garden and taking everything out, like for us, we're only taking the resin heads and then we're adding our bubble hash washed flour back into the garden. So we're not really taking anything out. You don't really have to add too much in. So that's just the base fertilizers. That's all you really need. And then you can just add your microbes weekly or whatever, every 7, 10 or 14 days, and you're good to rock. If you really want to go crazy, like a small farm like me, I've got like 16 so far, 15 or 16 additional liquid fertilizers that are all part of the Jadam. It's just Young saying he does not use like their farm. It's they do a basic like the grass clipping JLF and the crop residuals JMS and good to go. And then they occasionally do their sprays when needed. So it's on small scale, we can screw around, but this practice is made for 2 acres or more for a couple people to be able to do. And you're not screwing around with all of these different inputs and fucking around and having like, it's not the whole core of it. The core of it is to be efficient. So go ahead, Tara.
I wanted to say back a little bit ago that remember when we're talking about they get watered into the ground and they go in deep, like, so that's the other thing, that when you start your season out correctly and you apply this product before your season, before you actually get growing, it's amazing what it does to the soil. And even when you haven't started it, like I started applying it just in on my pots, my 1 gallon pots, when I first started using this product this year, the JMS, and it was like, wow, it made the soil poofy. Like it just, all of a sudden the soil was just like all of a sudden super poofy.
Nice.
And like, it was just like, you could tell it had started just activity. It was crazy.
It's just for like the visualization, and this is what's said from them, because I don't like the necessarily like the reference, but it's after 1 season of proper Jadam, starting from the foundational, because if someone like me, I got 20 however many fertilizer, if I forgot to do my foundational next year, no matter how much stuff I add and do, I'm not doing Jadam the rest of the season. If you don't do your foundational, you haven't started it. It doesn't matter adding your microbes, your JLF, whatever, all your different inputs, it just doesn't count. You're fucking around. You're having fun, which is cool. It'll still work. It's still beneficial, but just core principle concept, you don't do your foundational, it's no good. So now if you've done it properly for 1 season, starting on rugged terrain, but that means like properly means you have the proper amount of your compost or your cover crop, your main crop that's fallen down from the last season. So it's like, if you start with like a rough area, you have to give it some love to start with. But anyways, if you have the proper foundation, you start with your foundational work for your 1 month prior to planting, you plant in there. By the end of that season, just your average woman can put one of your like 4 foot, what are they? I can't remember how they refer to them, but essentially just like her bamboo sticks straight into the ground. And that's how they talk about it. I don't like the analogy, but it's like, so essentially after a season, if you do it right, it's very easy to push in for like a few feet into your ground is the claim. But that's, again, proper process. And I don't think there's very many people aside from like Young saying that's like, okay, here's the plot that's completely barren. We're going to give it a full rendition of the techniques, because most of us are like, we're learning and improving and trying things. So we don't have the opportunity to do that. Go ahead, Tara. You're muted, Tara. You're back, Tara.
I'm back. It's kind of just to go back to the starting out with a recipe, as Drake was just saying. It's like, if you haven't done these applications leading up to it, you really haven't done Jadam all the way through. These practices are like following a recipe all year. You know, you're growing, I'm saying summer grow, or those that are growing from your veg to your flower, from your seed to your flower, let's say. Even from your seed, Jadam has a practice to start even with your seedlings. It has a way of even starting from seed. They have a system. And so it's almost kind of, and I hate comparing it today, religion and growing styles are like the 1 and 1. I swear, grow styles become the new religion that we all argue about. And if you're, it'd be like, you know, making bread and leaving out the yeast. Like, you just can't make bread and leave out the yeast. You know, these things are just so important that if you're not starting with that first ingredient, the yeast, that live active ingredient, which is watering that in and getting that soil going first thing and that grow, you really haven't started Jadam practices all the way through. I started with that, but I kind of failed off in, like, I haven't been applying my JMS on a regular. So I don't even feel like I can say I'm doing Jadam full on. I made a lot of fertilizers. I've made a lot of stuff. I've been doing a lot of things, but I can't, like, I started off good, but I didn't even I kind of slacked a little bit. So not everybody is being honest out there. Don't think that they're doing this thing. Like, I'm serious. I see these gardens and these growers and these people preaching, and they're trying really to sell you something. It's hard. It's really hard. Go ahead, Drake.
It's hard to just like, even for myself to say, oh, I won't even say that I've given a full rendition this year. It's tough because it's like, all I've done is bust my ass. Like, we're having like 4-hour meetings plus a day on just the theories and the concepts behind it. Much love to everyone on the back end. Love it, love it, love it. Helping me so much, and Tara and everything. It's great. Blessed for it. But oh my goodness, it is easy, but like, to start something out, and especially to start it like, and in like a season and a half, and like to try and hit the ground running, like, you're making lots of stuff, you're sourcing things. If you're trying to get sustainable and respectable products, it's hard to do. I even got myself, I had some langbonite that I had lying around from my prior, from just making teas and stuff, like kind of like the TLO living organics kind of style. And just from reaching out, we were able to utilize these things. But now moving forward, it's like, instead of that, I just use wood ash from my cannabis stalks, and now in 15 days it's ready, instead of 3 months plus. And with the powdered langbonite, you got to stir it every week to make sure it's not sediment. With the wood ash, you just let it sit and make sure it's full in there, and proper process. 15 days, good to go. It's from your plant, so it's just another more wholesome thing. And like, you know, first JWA made with canola oil, which apparently is still like the most efficacious, but like, to move forward, we're going to use animals from the farm, and whatever animal works, but you can render the fat down and use that instead of canola oil. So now it's not, we're outsourcing some, and there's always moving forward. So, but to get everything to come together quickly, there is so much to go into it. And then like, there's these weekly applications, you gotta do this. And if you miss something, or you mess something up, and you need to redo it, and something else happens, it's like, you're already almost at the next week. So it's like, I've had some trials and tribulations. I've dialed it pretty darn good overall, but like, there's just been things for me to say, no. That's why I'm like, I'm getting like an 80% good give at it, and can't believe the results. So that's not like, we're having 50 to the hottest temperatures we're ever having, and I'm watering once a week here. I think
how long have you been running Jadam for in your garden?
So this season is the first season of like actual, like
Jadam only, nothing else, no KNF techniques at all.
Exactly. Yeah. Just, this is
the organic, other than the fact that your soil has already been hooked up, because you said that you've been mineralizing it and stuff, like just like my beds.
Yeah, from the years prior, I did some I was using the True Living Organics for like the couple seasons prior, before like.
That's what I started off with too.
The Rev, right? The Rev's book, and then I met Tara at the one online regenerative organic cannabis conference.
You also have some new beds that you have been building, so there's.
Oh yeah, we can go into that too. We've got like, outdoors, I've got some newer beds that have only been treated really with Jadam inputs. And we're talking like, I got like some barren field over here that I can just source some soil from, because it's going to be turned into like some awful corporate shit in the future. So I'm able to source it. It's really bad. It doesn't grow much, but with just this Jadam applications, tell my cannabis plants it was bad soil. Like, they're like, Argh! So it's so cool to see. And like I was saying, I've only watered really once a week, and that's only because that's when we do our microbial application. In ideal settings, you can do it every 7 days, every 7, 10, or 14, ideally, for the stretching it the most, to have efficient microbial diversity throughout the whole season. So it's been really cool to see how effective they are, and how well they just work. And we've got ones that are obviously just sourcing all the stuff that the plants need, and helping and forming those those relationships. And obviously there's a crazy fungal network in there, so I don't really have to second guess if there's fungi or not, because I can see how well the plants are doing. Full disclosure, just like after the huge heat wave and everything, I just wanted to see if the plants could take more water. So I gave them a watering. I got a new RV filter. That was one of the things holding me back on that. So I got a new filter, and no chloramine, sprayed them. Chlorine. And we don't have chloramine in the water here. So no chlorine. And I gave them some love, and like they were not showing any signs of overwatering. They actually just gave an extra, they're praying so hard it looked like the leaves are going to shoot straight up. So a second time, a couple days ago, I gave them another little shot in between in the middle of the week just for fun. None of the plants ask for water, but if they can handle it, they'll probably grow a bit more vigorously. But I just don't want to be like here preaching, I only water them once a week. And then like somehow on the back end, be like, hey, you son of a bitch, I saw you out there on a Wednesday watering when you said it was only Saturday. But for the most part, overall, it's only been 1 week. They've never asked for water. So it's been pretty cool to see. And it's gotten some love the seasons prior, but I'm new. I was never really a farmer before. Like I didn't have a crazy green thumb. I had a grandmother that's semi-inept, but now the more I've learned, the more I learned how off she kind of was too. Like it's crazy. Like they just kind of would, it's neat to see.
I did want to ask, when you're talking about, sorry to interrupt, you're on microbial solution. So when we know that we got a perfect bucket with perfect foam rings, it almost looks like geometrical harmonious in there with microbials just making this
and
nice
especially
circle.
with that one, right, where you could really see the different waves in that. And that's
hypnotizing.
That's how it looks.
When you dilute that with water to water your garden, whether it's amended soil from this year or whether it's like some raw soil you're trying to bring back to life, how much of a dilution are you giving it with the water?
So now, and this will transfer perfectly into I'm also now applying to them only indoors. That's why not, right? Everyone says we can't. So I showed on my IG a little filter system that we use for the larger grass clipping one, which is just a 5-gallon bucket inside of a brute, and you have a paint strainer bag over it, some holes through the whole thing, some rocks in the bottom to hold it down, push it down into the grass clipping, and now you can, with your little measuring cup or whatever you can take clean, filtered, quote unquote, JLF. And then once it's too low, you just switch to your next one. I always have at least 2 going so that we can constantly have one sitting and brewing. And so anyways, I was able to grab I got 11 different of the JLFs, not quite all of them, but a good amount of them, and brought those inside in little nice jars. And they're sealed up, so they're not smelly until you open them. They're not super smelly because they're filtered. I mean, I'm used to it overall, and I don't hate on any little bit of smell. It's clean. I'll take some pictures. It's just nice to have like these nasty, smelly fertilizers, but they're also nicely laid out and looks good. And a couple of the jam videos, they have it laid out really nicely too. Anyway, I'm bringing them indoors. So in doing so, this leads me to the short story made long to answer your question. I've been inoculating ProMix. And we reached out and asked at what levels would you feel comfortable if you were having to work with a kind of an inert medium like that. And the answer we were given is play safe with like 1 to 100. So that's what we've been doing, 1 to 100 for the foundational. And that's the same thing. If I'm planning to be doing clones in a month from this time, that means today I would have the one JMS ready. I would do my soil foundational application, which also has some JLF in it as well. No more than 1 to 100, possibly 1 to 200. And it depends on the different ones you're incorporating because the dilutions vary quite significantly. But either way, I no more than 1 to 100 with the JMS. I'll apply it quite evenly, but not to oversaturate. And then every 5 days for that month, doing the foundational application. That's the key to doing it. And then from that point, planting into or cloning or putting your seeds or whatever into that now charged ProMix. So I've been recently just starting the foundational. I had a week where I messed up one of the JLFs, and it was from me not cleaning the sock enough, because I usually leave the socks in and I let them hang because, like I said, Young Sang said it's better that way. It can be a little bit stronger because they get to eat at those microbes that are still left in the sock. But I think I didn't clean it enough with my JWA, and I started to get like some weird little like things that were building in the JMS. It still seemed to work and but it just had some questionable ones. And anytime it's questionable, the rule of thumb is just compost pile. You can still use it somewhere, don't put it on your main crop. So anyways, I had a failure, and that led me to miss the one foundational application. By the time I made the next one, it was already like getting close to 10 days in between. And it's really, you want to do it every 5 days.
When you mess up a batch and you're like, great, I really needed it this day. And
that's why we start practicing the smaller batches to see if it's possible and how they work, and then starting just a couple little ones. And honestly, when we're talking even 5 gallons, which is now enough, that's enough to do 100 gallons of water at maximum dilution anywhere for a super happy garden.
So if you made a 5-gallon bucket, you could put that in a 100-gallon reservoir with water and mix it all up and spray like soil drench or foliar spray as well?
So that would be at 1 to 20, and you'd probably be mixing it with hard water. So that would be just for a soil drench. And again, 1 to Tara, you muted. Again, 1 to 20. I'm not sure if you're talking or not. 1 to 20 is the maximum application for your plants. And again, that's not. Young Sang does 1 to 100 at their farm. Let's put it that way. 1 to 20 is like, we have the analogy of like, we have you're taking the bus or you're in a race car. But if you're in a race car, you need the racing wheels, you need to have the right brakes, you got to have a good engine that'll handle it. You don't want to just throw, that's poor analogy, but you know what I'm saying, right? So it's like, you don't necessarily want to just do 1 to 20 JMS if you have no other applications. So it's always safe to stick around like that 1 to 100, 1 to 50, just not quite going so hard with it. There's a lot of room too. So that's why we can get up to that 1 to 20 level, which is so like 5 times more than used on the other farm where they get great results. So to wrap back with the foundational applications, with the Pro Mix, it's advised about the 1 to 100 just to be safe because there's a lot of unknowns. With general foundational work, you're doing 1 to 10, so 10 times that. So that's kind of the differentiation that they're giving us, which is pretty substantial. But you do
for the Pro Mix 1 to 10,
1 to 100.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the inert medium, if you're working with a medium that's not like an outdoor, your garden, you never want to do more than what he advised, at least. I don't necessarily want to say you never want to, but what it was advised to us is 1 to 100. And that's done every 5 to 7 days for generally 5 applications, 4 applications minimum if you're doing every, well, I guess it depends. For 5 applications, essentially, is what you're trying to do it prior to planting it. Sometimes you can get a 1 or more, sneak it in there, depending if you're doing every 5 days. So that would be the answer for working with a medium like that to charge it. Then you can clone and plant seedlings into it as so. And again, test it. If you're working with something and trying these new techniques like I'm doing, I'm testing with gear that I'm not as worried about and with plants that I'm not going to need for the pertaining rounds. And we're playing around. And things like I was too lit in the morning and I gave it a 1 to 10 because I'm so used to doing 1 to 10. And then I'm talking in our meeting and they're like, you did what? Like, oh, I fucking don't know about that now. Like, maybe you can plant it if you want. I'm like, well, shit. Like, so then it's like, now I got to restart the foundational work again. So write things down, have a schedule, double check everything. If you're like myself, you will find a way to mess it up for yourself if you don't have everything laid out.
I always seem to like mess things up. That's why I always write down what I did. And if I go back and I see that something got messed up or something went wrong, and then I go back to my notes and say, what did I do where I over applied something? What happened not too long ago where something went wrong?
This is days at a time. These are 1 days. And the top things together are all the stuff I have to do. And the bottom is when I'm doing them and what time and how I did them. And it's so
you put it all on your phone?
Oh yeah. And it's and when you do it on your phone, you can share it to anyone else too. So like my business partner, or anybody can have it. He can have his own fun. Like it's incredible if you really get it down, because if you're trying to juggle a lot of stuff and having a life outside of it, you can't expect yourself to just hold on to all, like, and I'm bad. Like I don't have a crazy memory. I'm so like admiring of people who can just read or listen to something and then just know it. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I got to try this like 30 times. Yeah. So
Tara, I have a question for Tara, because we're talking about like, how long have we been using Jadam only for? You said earlier that you were growing for a long time. You've always grown food. So what have you used in the past when you were growing food in general? And then how long have you been using Jadam for?
So literally, I'm one of those like 80s childs that was like Miracle Grow.
Me too. That's what
I was an 80s child. Like, so unfortunately, you know, like people were saying earlier, this has been like Ginger said earlier, this has been like information that was taken from us. Like all of this stuff, Mark said earlier, Mark Hogue, he says, my grandfather used to tell us to go out and collect leaf mold soil basically in the forest and bring it back and put it in the compost. You know, so our grandparents, our great grandparents knew this information. And what, unfortunately, they all left the farm. All of our great grandparents that had this knowledge, they left the farm because of our farming industry and ag industry, not to go dark, is just really political. And it, unfortunately, there is some really ugly, deep roots in this political bullshit agriculture system that we live in. Sugar is one of those subsidized subsidies that people don't have no idea. Potatoes is another one. I don't even like to use potatoes. I want to grow my own potatoes. The reason I don't want to use potatoes, you guys, I live in Washington State, where it's like the #1 state for potatoes, this in Idaho. They literally go in the ground with this big machinery and they put fungicides in the ground and they kill everything. They put so much poison and crap. And my ex brother-in-law used to grow potatoes. My in-laws were all potato farmers. Like, this is my brother-in-law used to work on potato shed storages. Like, I know this stuff. And it, like, these farmers literally could not get out of their tractor with the shit they're spraying, or they would die. Like,
that breaks my heart, man. I fucking love potatoes.
That we're not driving by these fields and we're not being exposed to this stuff. I'm sorry.
We are. It's in the air.
I'm just frustrated, but I hate to go down this dark rabbit hole, and that's why Gingerbug says Drake is speaking the future. And I hate to sound like I'm like almost like, you know, hippie-ish, but he is. Like, this is like Jadam, you guys, literally is the key. If you're looking to become self-sufficient, empower yourself. If you're looking to become the healthiest you can be, and the cheapest way to do it, this literally is it. You don't have to have a degree. It's easy once you learn these steps, but there are steps. There are recipes into following. That's the problem. People don't follow the exact recipes, and then we get off in this version and we don't understand them. And we're really trying to learn it first. So we're really trying to learn this first before we put it out there to everybody. Like, we're really careful on the questions we ask, we answer. We want to really let you know that we don't know, or we do, because God, it's just so important.
Yeah,
preaching. Okay,
I'm 100% agree, because it's not only about growing medicine, but also growing food as well.
Yes.
I was just saying this, like, there's a video that just got up on Future Cannabis Project, and I was talking about the importance of microbials for our bodies, and using shit like all the toxins that they're putting into the ground or spraying in the fields, that is affecting us. Roundup is affecting us. If we could all start taking better care of our soils, growing our plants organically, then we could all heal. And it doesn't just have to be from cannabis. Terpenes and cannabinoids are found in other fruits, herbs, vegetables, plants, flowers. Like, I mean, if we could go back to eating healthier, which is what I do love about growing food and medicine, is being able to grow my own food. And I'm trying to find a way to do it regeneratively, in a manner that even on large scale, would work out very well. So I know I'm definitely one that mixes a lot of things up. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I got a lot of different shit going on in my grow. I'm definitely not KNF only or Jadam only.
And that's okay. Like, we're not knocking anybody.
No, but
what we don't
testing it.
Yeah, but what we don't want to see is people knocking one system when they haven't tried the full system.
Fully. Mm-hmm.
They haven't made the full recipe. They're not that kind of chef. You're not a Jadam baker until you've baked Jadam. Sorry.
If someone comes at you in a semi aggressive manner, being like, "This is my way and it's better," and you respectfully educate them as to why, in your opinion, or why in many people's opinion, maybe even some peer-reviewed studies opinions, that you have a different feeling that's contradictory, that's one thing. But going out of your way to be the one that's instigating is another thing, right? And of course, I mean, knowledge will come from that too. Information will come from that in general. It just depends on what side you want to be, and you might become a lot less inviting to the more passive person that really respects you and wants to learn from you, just because you're a lot more obtruse and aggressive, just is what's portrayed, even if you could be really nice, in general. So it's that's why I always try to be passive. I know I two-step around things a lot and stumble and don't really give decisive answers all the time, but it's because I want to be very careful. And if we say something that's totally wrong, and or something that we believe is right, and then we learn in the future that it's wrong, we need to go back and amend it and address it, and maybe not just like sweep things under the rug and like delete shit and hide it. It's like actually bring it up and be like, hey, this is what I had known, this is what I've learned now, and this is why. And you know, does anyone have any, you know, contributing or opposing information? And just, it's all like, we can have these really beneficial chats. It's just not if someone is like in their heart to be right, or in their heart to have someone else just be wrong, if that makes sense, right? Like if you can just be happy and be willing to learn, we're all gonna get educated. I understand if you're rooted in a way, or even if it takes a little longer, maybe you need to sit at home and mull on something before it changes your mind. But there's lots of things that are, especially right now, there's a lot of conflicting ideas going out there. And just myself, I've had a large amount of confusion trying to come to the stem of it, or where these ideas come from. And like, and then me, instead of just, you know, fighting wars online, like we try to reach out to people specifically and chat with them. And then now I'm just reading through all the books and watching the videos and going back through everything to see like, okay, well, this is what we're being told, and this is what's here, and this is what's been reviewed, and where the heck do these left field ideas come from? And then once I get through all these, which I pretty well am, then I'll start digging a little deeper and see if I can find maybe some just people that got too much clout, that are spreading ideas without too much information. But yes, let's jump into this. Let's see what you got going on, because we haven't really touched on what you're growing or what you're doing. We just kind of touched on where you were. So why don't we close the show by hearing about you and what you got in the garden and what we're seeing even right now?
Oh, that is in my greenhouse. I'm just kind of surprised about how tall some of these plants are getting. I like to do these res videos where I just kind of show everybody my once a weekly feeding. Also, I'm one of the founding trustees of Luna Gardens Foundation, and we like to help educate people about cannabis medicine and how it helps people heal from various ailments and diseases. So if you want to check that out, the website is lunagardens.co, and Luna Gardens is also on Facebook, just to share updated information about the latest cannabis research. We just recently became members of the Society of Cannabis Clinicians. So I'm really excited about that. I got a couple of gardens growing because I have some patients who are also Colorado caregivers. So we grow cannabis medicine for our patients, and we specialize in the oils. Outdoors, I got a couple of higher THC level strains, but I also got some one-to-ones, and those are my favorite, especially growing them outdoors and then turning them into oils, because those ones I believe have the best of all worlds. It's organic and it's out in the sun, and they have a roof on them, so they are protected from like anything harmful coming out in the sky. So the greenhouse actually stays really, really hot. So those plants have gotten extremely huge. But growing outdoors, one of my very favorite things to do. You know, I also got food going too. I did tomatoes, cucumbers, and lettuce. And man, that lettuce, I usually go for like a head of lettuce or romaine. It's pretty yummy. That lettuce mix that I grew, I don't know what it was, but it was very bitter. And you know how like bitters are for your stomach? Let me just say, it completely flushed everything out. I had like one bowl of salad that I grew, and now I think I lost 10 pounds. I don't know.
Detox. That's what I say about kombucha too.
For sure. So I haven't always been growing though. So this is me like learning how to do everything for the first time, but I believe.
I love it. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
For your greenhouse, I just had a question in accordance to that. Is there any plants that are growing outside of it as well, or are they all in that greenhouse?
Yeah, I have 2 of them.
Cool. Well, the only reason I ask is we've recently been chatting with breeder Steve. I think that was back on Fumidor and the Flavors channel.
Yes, and I heard that. I was listening.
Units, right? He's talking about the heat units and how he saw it with his grapes that he was growing here in Cologne with the winery, and it's in corn and in different select crops where the heat units really affect the finishing time and the forcing time of the flower. And in like grapes, it affects the sweetness and everything. So we don't know kind of the
whole iciness of some vegetables.
Yeah, exactly. And
it defends against bugs who don't like being so hot.
And with his, or the ones that really like it. So you got to keep that in mind too. And with Steve, he's finding cultivars finishing 2 weeks early. If it's 8 weeks, it's 6 weeks. If it's 10 weeks, it's 8 weeks. So a lot of really cool things. So I keep bringing this up because I just want to keep getting this. I thought it was super cool. So I want everyone to be thinking about it. And then like individuals like yourself that have greenhouse scenarios, kind of like the ones he prior mentioned, that just are hotter by nature the whole season. It's cool. I want to see if people have outdoor and in greenhouse plus to see if there's different finishing time amongst the same, like, oh, these are all cuts from the same mother, but these ones seem to be finishing early or maybe not. Like, I'm just interested. So super cool.
One thing I do got going, which is kind of fun, is I got some seeds from Miles and I don't even know what they are. So I had 7 females and 6 went indoors. So I call them Miles in, and 1 went outdoors, and I call her Miles out. And the ones that are in are, they've already been in flower. They probably got about another month left, and they're already growing at like different rates. Like some are short and stocky and some are really tall and long, and buds are like, you know, more spaced out from each other. But the Miles in they haven't even started flowering yet, and they are just already freaking huge. I'm in over my head, I'll be honest. These plants are really, really huge. You know, I haven't personally cultivated this big of a yield, so.
I felt that way back in 2018. I pulled off my biggest crop ever. And it was
what were you doing? Was it outdoors?
It was all organic. I did not use Miracle Grow.
Yes, right.
I used all organic products. I used that Alaska fish fertilizer and that Alaska Bloom. And I had like chicken manure. I went up and got this amazing compost up north at this place up in Tenasket. They make an organic mix for cannabis. So I paid a lot of money. I went up there and bought all this stuff. So I pulled off an amazing grow like that in 2018, and then come back and I did a really crappy grow just by starting really late in the season. And when you start late in the season, there's just nothing you can do. And I'm noticing that with plants. If you stunt these plants at the beginning, sometimes they're never going to pull out of it, are they, Greg?
If you don't let the roots take off properly, if you don't give the roots the ideal conditions, it doesn't matter. And you'll know that by having plants, say a month or 2 later, that just aren't up to par with all the other ones. Yeah. And they'll be vibrantly, like vibrant maybe is the wrong word, but deep green, happy plant overall, but it'll be a little dwarf plant. And you go, what's wrong? What's going on? It's because you stunted those roots, unfortunately.
Hey, so real quick, is this cloner making noise? I forgot. I brought the cloner up here and I have it on. I'm like, oh crap, I plugged it in. You can't hear it? Good, cool.
I can't hear it. I got all sorts of bugs and birds.
Good. I brought the cloner up here. I had to bring it up here because I forgot. I have some amazing special cuts that I got from Red River Organics. And he brought a special OG to me. And so we're trying to clone her. So this is all I have in here. Thank you to those people that contributed to these clones. Just want to say shout out. And I'll keep you posted on, hopefully I'll have some clones by the next live. If I don't have some clones, if I don't have some roots by the next live, I'm going to be a little worried. I'll have to be honest. And we have a question in chat.
Yeah.
Does Jadam use worm castings at all? I did use worm castings in mine.
But Jadam itself does not
use,
we don't use worm castings aside from just the nature of the process. You'll have a lot of worms in your medium. The worms shall arrive. There's a specific like a gunny sack composting and stuff we do, which is just a couple like a hay and straw and some duck manure or different animal manure and a couple things we do, and then soak it with JMS, let it sit, and so on and so forth. Can use that for some of our foundational work, but or base work. But as far as like a worm casting or worm bins, which I still have just because I have one, and it's not like I was just go chuck my worm bin because I started it. I just haven't been using the worm castings for that. And then all of our food scraps now go for the food scraps JLFs, which take a fair amount of time, 6 months plus to ferment. So it's they have a different food source now of just like different papers and everything. And I'll probably evolve it. But the short answer is no, it doesn't necessarily utilize them because it just by nature encourages a whole bunch of worms to just be in your soil. So we don't have to go that way. We inquired about making, because I have the worm bin, so then I've got castings that are from my food scraps, which should be healthy. So we asked, hey, can we make a JLF out of worm castings? And the answer was yes, you can make food scrap JLF. So pretty much just saying you don't need a worm bin. You just put your food scraps and make JLF. There's lots of answers like that you find in when there's people, like there's a Jadam website and a forum where you can get answers if you ask a proper question in a manner that's answerable. And lots of the times it'll kind of just be a completely opposite answer, in which it's just telling you can do this, which is easier and faster. We got pretty much the short
problem is we as Americans think that we can just kind of throw here and there when we halfway kind of know things. We kind of don't, like, who reads the directions when you open something? That's proven right there. Not everybody reads the
One out of 3 people.
Do you follow them and lay them all out and make sure you got all of them? Do you follow it to the T,
you gotta make sure you got all your pieces. Okay, I see where you're getting at. I do. I have a book. I want to do it right. Sure, I could put it together without needing the book, but if I have it all laid out, then at least I start with, okay, I know I have all the pieces.
Yeah.
This is a shorter piece. This is a longer piece. This is 2 for some reason, and this is 1 for some reason, but I better keep them separated.
But that's just proven right there that everybody reads the directions all the way front to end, and you miss out on a lot of things. And so I just really want to express to anybody that out there is you're taking advice right now on anybody on the internet, make sure that they have been doing it for a couple years at least. Like make sure that this isn't just, hey, I'm going to use this new ingredient, follow me and buy all this shit because I'm selling it, or because I'm marketing it, or because I'm getting paid to do it, or because it's freaking free, because that really pisses me off. I just have to say, and I'm not here to sell you anything. I want to empower you. And this is what Drake and I are about. And I love that you joined this morning, because I can tell you're just one of us as well. We've been hanging away.
Yeah, we're all like learning this new way of doing things and trying our hardest to do it as affordable as possible.
And it should be free. It should be free. That to be healed, to heal yourself.
Grow your own plants and make fertilizers out of them. I mean,
amazing.
Or wildcrafting is always fun too.
Okay, y'all, we got to end this live. We have been going far too long. We have been keeping these people going. But let's stay on here for a minute. We'll chat a little bit after we go off. So everybody, I threw Green Goddess's link out there on Instagram. Make sure you go follow her, and make sure you go hit her up. Tell her you found her over here. Tell her you're a new fan. We love the new followers. And if you haven't followed Drake and I, you can also follow us over there on Instagram. Drake's much more active than I am. I love dabbing with you all. It's been an amazing, awesome morning. We'll definitely have Green Goddess back. We're not gonna let her go now. We got her number now. She's not going.
It's been fun talking with all you guys, but I got shit I gotta do today.
I know. We all got shit we gotta do. My water's been off for 2 days. We lost our pump. And as Drake has said, yesterday it was 106 degrees here, and my plants didn't need water. I was lucky for 2 days and didn't have to water my plants. And I think it really was some of this Jadam solution I've been working and all of this prep I've been doing. I think it just prepares those times for the weakness when you have those droughts. Just like our health is super important to us, we need to prepare for when we're weak. We need to get our health up there and be the strongest that we can be. So I love you all. Have an amazing day. Please go follow Green Goddess. We'll be back again with her next time. And Drake, my co-host, will obviously be back. We're going to be back here on Wednesday. I don't know who we're having yet, what we got going on, but I love you all, and we'll see you again. As always, peace and love. Cheers. Have a fabulous day.